actually just looking at all the anti-SJW nerd channels I used to cover here, and I haven't done so for quite a while, to be honest. And I was looking at their views, and I was like, damn, like these views have gone down massively from when, I don't know, when I used to pay attention to them, like 2021, early 2022, where they'd be getting like 500,000 to 1 million views, like on every single video. And now when I look at the quartering, I find videos of like 40K, and it's actually a big deal if he gets over 200K on a video. And then I looked at Geeks and Gamers channel recently, and although not like terrible views just generally, some of these thumbnails did make me laugh. Snow White failed, we did it, boys. I walked out as Snow White. This is a 40-year-old man doing this. And I was just thinking, like, has anti-SJW YouTube specifically focused on nerd culture, has it had its heyday? Has it had its peak? Now, there's a video I actually always think about, this is weird, from another leftist YouTuber called Tiffany Ferg. She made a video about like the life cycle of YouTube channels and how you have your rise, you have your peak, you have your like maybe stagnation maintenance period, and you have your fall. I think about this all the time because I'm always thinking about myself. And when you're a YouTuber, if you guys don't know, you always doubt like, are you still relevant? Like even this year, my momentum is so weird to say this. I was ill for like 2 weeks after I got like quite a good bit of momentum in January. And I feel like that has just derailed the last month or so. And I've been thinking so much like, oh, am I just done in terms of like growing? Have I hit the peak last year? And this is my fall as described by this Tiffany Ferg video. But although for me, it remains to be seen if I've hit the peak yet or not, it's pretty clear these anti-SJW YouTube channels are way past their peak now. And they are getting the stagnation, if not the downfall period of their YouTube channel's life cycle. And I just wanted to speculate on a couple reasons of why that might even be. And it begs the question, are these people actually suffering from success? Because Donald Trump is president, Republicans control all branches of government, Elon Musk and his cronies have taken a sledgehammer to the administrative state, and everything they've ever wanted is coming true. Even like corporations are backing down on the woke stuff because they want to get in bed with the Trump administration. Like they're cutting their DEI programs and everything to do with diversity, not because Trump made them. And I think in that context, how outraged can you be all the time, right? Of course, people are always going to be mad. The culture war is going to always go on. But if your side is like heavily crushing people for like diversity or like rolling back women's rights and LGBT rights, are people going to be seeking that content on YouTube about how the woke establishment is ruining video games and movies, especially when it becomes more evident that, yeah, the US government is screwing you. So in the US, your video games are going to go up massively in price regardless of their political affiliation or what politics the games contain themselves. We've seen this recently with the Switch 2 tariff stuff, that they're saying it might up the price by like $200 or something. And that's what their side are now doing. So in this context, there's less outrage towards like wokeness and liberals because liberals aren't that visible at the moment. Liberals are pathetic. Like the Democratic Party is absolutely pathetic. And whatever wokeness is still around, it's being attacked by like this massive kind of like government apparatus, which is rolling back all of these things. Like when you're winning and these things are actually happening that you wanted, I guess people are less likely to seek it out on YouTube to start like circle jerking about how mad they are, because why would you do that? You're not going to be as angry when you're winning. But also related to the Daily Wire video, a lot of these guys are a lot older, like they're in their 40s, right? And I feel like there comes a point in everyone's life that a lot of the things that you used to care about, you just don't really care about anymore, especially when it comes to like media consumption. You so don't care about the popular thing. So, you know, Jeremy from Geeks and Gamers making a video about like, you know, Snow White failing or like walking out Snow White. When you're in your 40s, like even if you're a conservative man, who really gives a fuck? Like, do you actually care? I haven't seen a Marvel movie in the cinema since the Avengers one, and I haven't even felt the need to go and watch another one, right? And you just kind of just stop caring. Like, even there's loads of shows I want to watch right now, and I'm thinking in my head, I got so much shit I have to catch up on, but I'm just so busy. I have no time to pay attention to, firstly, even watch the shows I want to watch, but to pay attention to this like insane culture war around it. Like, I know they hate the Snow White thing at the moment, but I only know that because that was a couple years ago, and because I follow the Daily Wire stuff, they were trying to make their own alternative to it. But it's like, you know, with I want to watch Daredevil. I want to watch the Fallout show. I want to watch Shogun. I want to play all these video games. And I just don't have fucking time because I'm getting older and you just get more responsibility. So you can't just piss away all your time playing video games and watching TV shows like you're still in college. And I feel like even in that, can't pay attention to this stuff. You're like not going to waste your time watching these YouTube videos of man babies crying about wokeness when you'd rather spend it like playing video games. Like, I know if I have free time right now, if I'm not playing football or working or seeing friends or my girlfriend, it's just video games. But you only have so much time. So I'm just flipping between Kingdom Come 2 and Assassin's Creed Shadows. And I'm thinking like, will I even be able to complete this like this year or something? I'm just not gonna have the time. So that's another part of it. But also I think another part of it as well, I think people are just pivoting to streamers more. Like Asmongold is insanely popular, but I don't think even with their slot format, you can compete with someone streaming for 8 hours and then chopping that up and filling the algorithm with all this garbage. And I guess it's just about personalities, isn't it? Like popularities of personalities always shift. So, you know, in like the late 2010s, it was like Ninja, like literally like one of the most famous streamers ever. Like what's even happened to that guy? He's nothing now, right? And that's just the way social media goes. Sometimes there's really popular people and then they go away. Like if you think of Hassan right now for the left, he's having his moment, he's having his peak, but maybe in 10 years, we don't even know what he's up to. And there's another massive like left-wing streamer. And that's just the nature of celebrity, even YouTubers. It's the life cycle. And it feels like people are now just bored of this stuff where a 40-year-old man sits in front of a computer, reads an article from the Daily Mail and adds nothing to it. Like that only has so much of a shelf life, especially when you're pumping like 5 of these videos out a day and you're not changing it for like, how many years has he had a channel? Like nearly 10 years at this point. And as someone who has a very consistent format, there's nothing wrong with a consistent format. But if your format is just you reading something out for like 95% of the video, that's when it gets boring on top of all the other factors I've said. But also getting into the financial angle, it's clear this has affected people like the quartering. I watched a video where he said he's $300,000 in debt because he's trying to run his own coffee company and he's just put loads and loads of money into that. And I was thinking, and I've said this before, back in the day, I used to say he had the infinite money glitch. If you're uploading like 5 times a day and they're all getting like over 500K, you're probably making so much fucking money. And the fact that this guy is now $300,000 in debt and his views are declining, even him having money troubles in the first place, I mean, probably says a lot about his declining revenue on his channel. Now, also, there's one more factor that I think we need to acknowledge as well, and this is maybe more important, is lots of, let's say, normal people who aren't that engaged in politics and don't really give a shit about a lot of this stuff. Like, maybe they think they're anti-woke in some ways. I think a lot of these people have just massively overstepped the mark. So we had that guy crying about Starfield's pronouns, and it was just so forced and such an overreaction. Everyone started questioning, like, yeah, these people are probably just doing it for money, right? We have people like Grums, like, leading it on Twitter, and they just become the butt of so many jokes. Like, I watch some YouTubers, like gaming YouTubers, and I would generally say they might be more conservative. And even I heard them in their script making jokes about Grums. Like, people who do have an audience you'd think would be like anti-woke and stuff, they're making jokes about this guy and feeling fine doing that. And then you saw that Opera browser also like roasting Grums as well. And recently with the Assassin's Creed Shadow stuff, even Ubisoft was roasting Grums and Elon Musk, because to general people, even if you might have more conservative politics, they've just become such crybabies and so lame that even associating with them to a lot of people just seems so embarrassing, even if you might be more conservatively inclined, especially when they've been going mental about Assassin's Creed Shadows for months, and then it comes out, everyone likes it, and loads of people like Yasuke, and when you actually play the game for 2 seconds, how they contextualize him makes all the sense in the world, and it just seems like very natural to the story that this guy who actually existed, that's another point to that as well, how he's introduced. So people just play the game and they see that and they're like, oh, like, was I actually meant to be mad about this? This is the wokeness, this real historical figure who's a slave brought to Japan and then like adopted by this powerful warlord and made into a samurai, where you get to play through his training and see all the stuff he goes through. That's meant to be like anti-Japanese, hatred and stuff like that, when I'm also playing most of the start of the game as a Japanese woman as well. So I think a lot of people just see the logic is not holding up, and how increasingly like this little community of nerds is becoming an echo chamber in itself. Now, yes, of course we see the real political effects of like Donald Trump and all this anti-woke shit in the real government. At the same time, in terms of this more niche side of like specifically nerd media, it seems like it's becoming increasingly irrelevant in these previously relevant communities, be that like Grums fans on Twitter, or the Quartering, or Geeks and Gamers. So I feel like as well, as the world gets worse and worse, and you're seeing this now, people are like, oh, they ended wokeness and then all the planes started crashing. They ended wokeness and now there might be a recession. People are now kind of realizing the class angle as well, where a lot of these people are making a lot of money out of their outrage, and they're promoting these people. Like the Quartering's tweet recently telling people, you know, you don't need to buy stuff and it's all going to be fine, right? If you are a conservative gamer who can't afford their rent and groceries, are you going to like a guy who's made so much money off your viewership to be telling you that? I don't think so. And I think a lot of people are just going to become increasingly sick of this outrage when there's real world issues to deal with as well, like climate apocalypse, but also just right now in America, what they're dealing with under Trump. You can't ignore it, because that's the thing with Donald Trump. It affects your life so directly, you can't ignore it. Him and Elon Musk. And I'm going to make a video on this soon. I wanted to make it like next week, but I'm going away. Donald Trump is Leto II, the God Emperor from Dune. And Frank Herbert would probably be happy with what Donald Trump's doing right now. Not for the reasons you think. But that's a video coming up for later. But let me know what you guys think in the comments. And if you made it this far, thank you for watching.
One of the earliest hot takes I made on this channel about 6 years and 70 pounds ago was that one should not debate fascists. People did not like that I said this. They felt that I was being a stinky boy, giving a stinky opinion. The threat, as I perceived it then, was that fascists would manipulate good faith debate in order to gain a platform, that they would weasel their way into the political mainstream by tricking their opponents into giving them free airtime and access to their audience by being deliberately provocative and sensationalist, that by treating their opinions like something we can debate in good faith, their ideas would become accepted as normal. So, do you see why I was worried about that now? Do you see what I meant about all that stuff I said? Got it in one, I'd say. That's the stuff that happened. Like all burdened with the gift of foresight, I watched helplessly as the world I envisioned came to pass. But I'm not here to assign blame. I'm not here to gloat. I have nothing to gloat about, because despite being correct, as usual, I didn't convince anyone. I was scorned and hated then, just as I am now. So now what, right? Like, the fascists are everywhere, under every rock, controlling every website, seizing or just being handed power everywhere around the globe. Deplatforming doesn't make sense as a strategy anymore. You can't deny them a platform. They already have all of the platforms. But you still can't treat their murderous ideology and resultant murderous actions as though they are normal, something to be expected, or worse, tolerated. They're not normal. They're what social scientists call fucked up Nazi bullshit. So how do we speak back to fascism without giving fascists the attention and legitimacy they want? That's the question I've set for myself today. And make no mistake, it is a small potatoes question in the grand scheme of anti-fascist resistance. The real work is, obviously, community support, civil disobedience, armed resistance, and a bunch of boring care work that nobody thinks about. But I can't help you with that. I'm a moron. But that means I know how morons think. And in the war against morons, I'm your secret weapon, your moron on the inside. You see, I do have a very broad answer to the question I posed, that stuff I just said about how we talk back to fascism without giving them legitimacy. But before I can explain it to you, we have to lay some groundwork. We have to understand how fascists argue and how come they do it that way. I genuinely don't think most people understand either, and that fact, if not corrected, might kill us all, so it's kind of important. Here's the thing about fascists. Here's the thing you absolutely need to understand before we can proceed. They're losers. Each and every one of them. It is a loser movement for losers by losers. Firstly, like literally, fascism inevitably and invariably self-destructs. It is not designed to win, and when it does, by happenstance, it doesn't win for very long. They are always at one another's throats, always backstabbing and plotting against one another by design. They think that drives them all to be stronger through competition, but in actuality, it makes coordination and teamwork virtually impossible. Fascism is doomed to failure because it is entirely staffed and maintained by incompetent buffoons. Nobody else would have anything to do with it. Everyone else either has too great a critical thinking skill or too much self-respect to become a fascist. To quote Hannah Arendt, totalitarianism in power invariably replaces all first-rate talents, regardless of their sympathies, with those crackpots and fools whose lack of intelligence and creativity is still the best guarantee of their loyalty. Only losers become fascists. This is not a judgment, merely a statement of fact. To become a fascist is merely one symptom of an underlying spiritual loserness. Because when you really boil it down to its core, it is a movement of woe is me crybabies. People with some sort of gripe who are desperate to find someone else to blame instead of doing something about it. People who feel owed power and control and see the absence of that power and control as a humiliating insult. To be asked to earn power or privilege is a slap in the face. They should just have it because they're daddy's special boy, the best, most masterest race, or the smartest, most enlightenedest civilization, or they're the good religion that God likes. Sometimes, by sheer coincidence, their grievances happen to be legitimate, just directed towards the wrong target. Maybe they're poor or unemployed, and instead of getting angry at the rich and powerful, the people who are actually always responsible for that, they instead choose to believe it's because of immigrants, or secret Jewish conspiracies, or DEI, or welfare, or some shit, usually because the rich and powerful are quite aware that cultivating this myth benefits them, not only keeping people off their back, but granting them an easily manipulated audience willing to do violence on their behalf as a fun little bonus. Mostly, though, their grievances are entirely frivolous. That they have to accept school integration, or that their grandkids are trans, or that a woman might have sex without being punished for it. The oppression they believe themselves to be facing is simply that their prejudices have fallen out of fashion, that people get mad at them when they're shitty, or that they can no longer out loud proclaim their perceived superiority to some minority group without politely being asked to leave the Olive Garden. All of these guys are so happy to get to say the R word again. That is the sum total of their ambitions, permission to be cruel and thoughtless. And they don't care who they have to kill to get it, because they're weird, fucked up losers with stupid, miserable priorities. Fascism always requires an enemy, an opponent who they can imagine has perverted the natural order in which they are on top. When it's not immediately clear who that enemy might be, they're happy to just make one up or blame some outgroup they already didn't like, often, though not always, Jews. Fascists need an enemy because fascism is a movement of people who are unhappy, but who are also deeply unwilling to investigate why or change anything about themselves or their lifestyle. They are perfect as they are. They always have been. Things used to make sense when they, or people like them, were in control, or they perceived people like that to be in control. So the world must change back to that standard in order to oblige them. And do you see how that belief, right? Do you see how the belief that, like, they're perfect and the only reason they're not rightfully heralded as a superior being is because someone else fucked them over might appeal to, like, a great big loser, a fantasist without any grasp on reality, a mediocre person without anything to offer the world who can't emotionally process their inadequacies and need to find someone else to blame for why life didn't go their way? It's not that they're not good enough to get what they want, it's because the whole world isn't fair, or rather, isn't unfair in their favor anymore, like it should be. Even when they're inarguably successful, rich and powerful beyond most people's wildest dreams, hypothetically, off the top of my head, I don't know, the richest man in the world, they just have such loser energy. They're bitter, unhappy, completely preoccupied with petty little grievances, no matter how much wealth, power, and prestige they manage to accrue.
I mean, you had Tim Waltz, who's a huge jerk, running around on stage with a Tesla stock price, where the stock price had gone in half. And he was overjoyed. But what an evil thing to do.
They can't help it. They are losers. It is baked in. They can't change it. And it's critical that we understand this. I'm not saying this just to mock them. That's a side benefit. It's not hard to mock them. Look at them. It's very frustrating to argue with them. You might have noticed this because you'll never beat them on effort. You have other things to do. You have to go to work, take care of your loved ones, enjoy your hobbies, and have sex. But they have nothing else. This is it for them. This is all they have. Even if it seems like their life should be fulfilling, they make themselves into a miserable loser on purpose, it seems. Fascist movements, formal or otherwise, operate much like cults. When one joins them, they are at first overwhelmed with the appearance of validation and support. This is called love bombing, and is meant to endear you to them, to become dependent on them to meet your emotional needs. Then, that validation and support is gradually withheld in order to pressure the target into severing ties with the normie world. They drive away anyone outside of their hateful little bubble, so their entire network of social support depends on how useful they can be to the cause. It's the only way they can feel part of something anymore, because nobody else wants anything to do with them at this point. Take a look at Jeepers Creepers Rowling. Once a respected author of derivative children's books, she was radicalized further and further into hate groups because each time she shared a hateful view, everybody who wasn't already brain-fucked was angry about it, and only the people who shared her prejudices ever validated her. That drove her to become more and more extreme in those prejudices to seek their validation. And so, a fascist or potential fascist cannot help but become angrier and more extreme over time. It's the only way to participate, because if you're not constantly signaling support for the cause in new, novel ways, that validation stops flowing. They start to question your loyalties. Maybe you're a plant trying to make them look bad. Meanwhile, anyone who could otherwise talk sense to you requires that you accept you've been an enormous piece of shit. And that feels bad to do. It feels better to stick with the people who are telling you that you're cool actually, and strong and brave, and the bestest, most special type of person. Losers don't do difficult things. They take the easy way out. Everything becomes filtered through this lens. Every action, every statement, every thought becomes an opportunity to signal their support for the cause.
Fucking pronouns!
Everything becomes part of this eternal struggle, a symptom of the rot at the core of society that they are meant to oppose, a chance for them to be visibly, loudly loyal to the in-group. What might feel like a very trivial matter to you is transformed in their mind into a life-or-death battle against their perceived enemy forces. You might think you're having a silly little argument about Star Wars or comic books or video games or a little meme, but to them, this is a battleground upon which the future of our entire culture, nay, humanity, hinges, which of course makes them very important. That makes their posts very important. It's not a waste of time actually, Dad. They're fighting to save humanity from the bad guys by making posts, by posting about video games. They are saving the world. They will spend as much time as is required because they have convinced themselves that the whole world is at stake and they have nothing but time. This totalizing attitude also justifies any measures they take against you, because if you're with the people trying to destroy the world, there's nothing that's too bad to do to you, up to and including murder and torture. And they would murder and torture you. They do it right now even, gleefully. Luckily for us, they're also cowards. They have to be, right? A brave person would simply confront their problems instead of becoming a fascist about them. They'll only resort to violence when they know for a fact that there's no threat to themselves, which is why it's critical we never allow them to get to that point. There should always be a threat to fascists should they try to do fascist shit. Until that time comes, they're content to just pester their enemies incessantly, try to make their lives miserable through whatever petty little means they can manage. They are relentlessly tedious. They will soak up as much of your time and energy as you can provide them with, and more. There's no getting ahead of them on this without yourself becoming just as miserable as they are, and that's what they want. Toni Morrison wrote, "The function, the very serious function of racism is distraction. It keeps you from doing your work. It keeps you explaining over and over again your reason for being. Somebody says you have no language, and you spend 20 years proving that you do. Somebody says your head isn't shaped properly, so you have scientists working on the fact that it is. Somebody says you have no art, so you dredge that up. Somebody says you have no kingdoms, so you dredge that up. None of this is necessary. There will always be one more thing." Now, of course, Morrison is discussing racism, and while all racism is fascist in character, not all racists are explicit ideological fascists. By no means do I want to reduce racism, an extremely complex confluence of behaviors, to something that only Nazis do. I bring this quote up because the phenomenon Morrison is relating here also applies to fascism more broadly. Fascists delight in wasting your time. It suits their purposes to do so because their purposes are just to make you suffer. So you can't ever expect them to be reasonable, ever. They will die on every hill. They will argue about every little point of minutia forever. They will deny anything you say, no matter how absurd it seems to do so. They will assume the counterposition to every position you offer, play devil's advocate about everything, muddy the waters on every single fact, no matter how inconsequential or self-evident it may be. They will argue that, no, Elon Musk didn't throw up a Roman salute. You can fucking see him do it. And they will look you right in the eye and they will say, no, he didn't. He did not do that. They'll just deny it pointlessly. Why bother? We can see him doing it, guys. What are you talking about? They can't possibly mean it. Not even they could be that dumb. They are lying. Fascists lie. And this is where most people get it wrong. Because they do, obviously. They lie, yes. They also believe their lies, sort of. Even when they know they're lying, they believe their lies. Not because they're dumb, though, you know, but for a far more insidious reason. What I think a lot of people fail to understand is that fascists view truth differently than regular people. From their perspective, and this is going to sound strange, but please bear with me, speaking a falsehood isn't necessarily lying. A statement can not reflect reality, but still be true to a fascist. When most people think of truth, we view it as more or less like that which accords with reality. Something is true if it matches what we see or experience or can measure. I'm talking in very broad strokes here, obviously. It's not that simple. Like, we can't measure that you love your dog, for instance, but nonetheless, I accept it as true. Entire college courses could be taught on the philosophy of what is and is not truth, but more or less, that's how we mean it when we use the word day to day, right? Fascists, like all authoritarians, do not view truth remotely like this. To their mind, truth is not dictated by reality. It's actually the opposite. It works the other way. Reality is dictated by their truth. Truth, or rather their idea of truth, is the foundation from which reality is built, and therefore, nothing within reality could be invoked to contradict their truth. Reality is lesser. Reality is always changing. It's not dependable. Reality is the earthly and mundane, while their truth is eternal, a higher power. It is transcendent. It is of God. A fascist can view a statement as true even when acknowledging that it's also an outright falsehood. And that seems like a contradiction to you and I. Truth and falsehood are mutually exclusive, but to a fascist, the falsity is merely base reality, which, remember, you can't count on. Truth transcends material reality. Truth is eternal and unchanging and not subject to reappraisal simply because reality contradicts it. That's why J.D. Vance can say with a straight face that it is true that Haitians were eating people's pets in Springfield, Ohio, even if he concedes, of course, that it didn't actually happen. It's true, but that doesn't mean it happened. This is called the mythic truth, the truth which transcends reality. What that mythic truth represents is truer than true. The mythic truth simply is. It need not be justified. It need not be proven. It cannot be falsified. It cannot be questioned. It is fixed, unchanging. It has always been thus, and so it will always be thus. The mythic truth in the minds of a fascist has been discovered over and over throughout history, embraced, leading to all of the great civilizations of the past, and then suppressed, leading to those civilizations' downfall. Fascism is syncretic. It takes ideas and concepts from multiple sources and tries to synthesize them into a broad, sweeping set of principles that they can apply backwards in time. To question the mythic truth is therefore, in their minds, not simply a matter of disagreement, but to defy the will of nature, to stand in opposition to what they see as the animating force of the universe, to invite the fall of civilization, causing humanity to backslide into barbarism. So anything which contradicts the mythic truth is fundamentally evil and must be rejected on that basis, and that basis alone. When evidence contradicts the mythic truth, the evidence is lying. You don't need to know how it's lying, what about it is incorrect, or if anything about it is incorrect. You simply know the evidence must be wrong because it can't be correct and contradict the mythic truth. When the mythic truth is shown to be contradictory or self-defeating, they will insist, without a shred of irony, that logic itself is therefore lying. They won't bother trying to explain away the contradictions because it is an act of service to the mythic truth, the highest good, to simply accept it on faith, particularly when reason would dictate otherwise. If anything which contradicts the mythic truth is evil, then dismissing it is an act of good. So by willfully ignoring evidence or arguments against the mythic truth, they show their devotion to it. Therefore, they can cognitive dissonance their way into accepting evidence against their position as further reason to accept that position. Their truth is so strong that it doesn't matter if it seems incorrect, it's still true. And let me say that again for emphasis. Evidence against a fascist position strengthens the fascist's belief in that position. I'll give you an example of this that might be familiar to you. Fascists will often say that there are only two genders. Everyone is either male or female. You're born that way and there's no changing it and there's nothing else one can be. Now, I'm not saying that if you believe there are only two genders, you're a fascist. You might just be a stupid asshole, but it is a position a fascist would hold and argue strenuously for. It is also a position that is dumb as hell. rocks for brain shit, like get a grip. There's no evidence for this position. How could there be? It can't be falsified. How do you prove your subjective experience of gender is right or wrong? Are the millions of gender nonconforming people all throughout history lying? All willing to subject themselves to persecution and violence for no reason other than to maintain this fiction? Why? Does that sound credible? Are we to dismiss their stated subjective experience? And if so, what evidence do we accept in its place? Because to my knowledge, none of these dipshits has ever offered any. There is, by contrast, much evidence against this position. The whole premise of a gender binary rests on the faulty assumption of a strict binary of biological sexes, which is both obviously incorrect and also completely irrelevant. Gender is not sex. I think we've been pretty clear on that, my guys. Not only are you dead-ass wrong, would not matter to the discussion if you happen to be correct. Belief in a bioessentialist gender binary is absurd. It's contradictory and dumb. It is obvious and self-evident that some people's idea of themselves do not align with the gender they were assigned at birth. How then do fascists arrive at this conclusion? Why do they feel so strongly about it? Why do they remain completely unmoved by evidence against it? Why care at all, for that matter? And you might say, well, duh, obviously. It's because they hate trans people. And yes, I'm not a child. I understand that. But why, though? Because if you were to ask them, they would say that their hatred of trans people is rooted in this belief, which, of course, they only believe because they hate trans people. So isn't that kind of circular? I mean, which came first, the adult human chicken or the large gamete cell? The real reason they believe this, of course, is that fascists, among other assholes, believe men and women exist in strict natural hierarchy. Everyone does, but especially men and women. Anything which might complicate that dynamic is therefore automatically untrue. Men and women must be immutably and fundamentally separate categories if we are to believe one is superior to the other. If the differences between men and women are murkier than they imagine, socially constructed, or worse, subjective, then that contradicts their perfect, eternal, mythic truth. And anything which contradicts their perfect, eternal, mythic truth can simply be dismissed on that basis. It is not necessary to explain why or investigate further. To do so would be a sign of disloyalty. Now, sure, they might offer some specious evidence for their case to you. They might make some kind of leap of logic to justify this belief to you, because they know that you value those things. But none of that is why they believe what they believe. If their reasoning can be shown to be wrong, and it always can, it doesn't matter. It was never required for them to believe it in the first place. They will just invent another reasoning. Forever. They'll say you can tell because of genitals, and you point out that doesn't make any sense. There's all kinds of genitals. And they say, okay, well, it's the skeletons. You can tell from the skeletons that there's only boys and girls. And you point out how that doesn't make any sense. And they say, okay, it's chromosomes. And you point out how that doesn't make any sense, and so on forever. Kind of like how Toni Morrison described how they just make up the same kind of excuses to justify white supremacy, saying black people's skulls are the wrong shape, or that black people don't make music. It is trivially and obviously wrong. It is nonsense presented entirely to waste your time. It's not the same thing, of course. These groups have different experiences, particularly those who fall into both groups, but it follows the same pattern. When you do manage to do a complete circuit and exhaust all of the bullshit they have prepared, they will always say some variation of the following. Well, it's just the truth. Deal with it. Because, of course, they know what's true already. They need not explain why. They need not justify it. It simply is so. You cannot reason them away from this position because their positions are above reason, above evidence, above earthly logic. Furthermore, by an amazing coincidence, whatever they decide is true will always be whatever's most useful for their political project. Because think about it, right? In their mind, they're battling for the future of civilization, and that's a pretty strong incentive to rationalize away whatever it takes to accomplish your goals. Would you want to believe that the evidence were stacked against what you saw as the only way to save civilization? And while, of course, they believe that their truth is perfect, unchanging, and eternal, they are all too happy to edit it on the fly when it suits their purposes, to will reality to bend to their whims by changing what is and has always been unerringly true. They don't give a shit if this appears inconsistent to you. They will never acknowledge the consistency, and for all intents and purposes, might not even be able to perceive it. Enemies, outsiders, villains become trusted allies whose moral character has always been above reproach. Positions shift and waver depending on what is expedient in the moment.
Leave it the way it is. There have been very few complaints the way it is. People go, they use the bathroom that they feel is appropriate.
And just look how mad you are. Look how upset you got that I chose to believe a bad, wrong thing on purpose. My commitment to believing this bad, wrong thing proves how obvious and true it must be, because otherwise there'd be no reason for me to reject the weight of evidence. For me to do that demonstrates how true what I'm saying must be, and I have been rewarded for my faith with what I desire most, which is to upset you, to waste your time. So, if you accept the two premises I have presented to you here, that 1, fascists love to waste your time because they're losers with infinite time on their hands, and 2, that the fascist construction of truth is fundamentally irrational and therefore immune to rational criticism, do you see why it is a bad idea to argue with them on their terms? Do you get it now? Do you see how they've already decided what they believe, and their only goal is to distract and frustrate you forever? How if their whole goal is to waste your time with bad faith nonsense to deliberately frustrate and confuse you, how you don't need to let them do that? Ah, but thought swine, you slutty little sausage, I hear you say out loud, word for word, even though you're on the bus. One doesn't argue with fascists in order to convince the fascist. They argue with fascists to convince those who might otherwise be swayed towards fascism. First of all, it's thought slime. I don't know how you got that wrong. It's written all over the... Secondly, that's also a bad idea. I made a part of the video about that for you, and I'm going to play that now. Let me know if you like it. Comment below if you liked this part of the video. Imagine, if you will, you are watching a debate between two theoretical physicists. Dr. Sally Pringles is arguing for the Copenhagen interpretation of quantum physics, and Dr. Pepsi Davidson is arguing for the many worlds hypothesis. By the end of the debate, 53% of the crowd of 250 people side with Dr. Pepsi Davidson. Now, you're not a theoretical physicist. Don't pretend you are. You don't understand most of the arguments being made, and you have to take a lot for granted. And if you happen to be a theoretical physicist, okay. Pretend I'm using a different example. Like, what the fuck? You can imagine shit in 13 dimensions, but I gotta simplify my analogies for you. Fuck off, physicists! The person who convinces you won't necessarily be the person who is correct, and if by chance they are, you're really not in a position to determine that to be the case. Real physicists don't know which one is correct yet. The person who convinces you will be whomever is more persuasive, for whatever reason. Maybe one is the more confident public speaker. Maybe you just got dumped in Copenhagen. Maybe Dr. Pringles is your dad's new wife. You come away with your own preconception about which of these two things is true, and at best realize that there's a robust debate for both sides. This is something for other people to decide, something you must keep an open mind about. Okay, now, imagine you did that 1,000 times a day, whether you wanted to or not. Imagine if every single thing you read, every single TV show you watched, everything about your personality and identity were the subject of an unending and indecipherable debate happening everywhere all the time that you were forced to observe and participate in, whether you wanted to or not. That's just a funny joke I'm making. You don't need to imagine that, because that's just what life is like now. Did you hear? Did you hear Captain Crunch is woke? People who were ticklish are back on their bullshit. Snakes, the animal, went on Joe Rogan and said that they think the Civil Rights Act went too far. Why does a snake even care about that? Why do we care what snakes think about that? Snakes have no history of racism. None of us is free to investigate every fucking discourse that pops up in their lives. There is not enough time in the day. Eventually, you'll have to sleep. You can't spend all of your time researching weird internet bullshit and arguing with bad faith imbeciles all day. You're a contributing member of society, not some sort of YouTube video essayist. My life's work has no value. Please go to patreon.com/thoughtslime. Most people see an argument happening. They see two people who seem equally passionate about their positions, and unless they have some reason to be invested in the discussion, they just go on with their day, because what else are you going to do? Nobody is going to come to an informed opinion about all of the shit blasted into their brain meat every second of every day. You pick a few things that are important or that interest you, and you get informed about those, at best, and most people don't even do that. For the rest, whether or not we like to admit it, we tend to outsource our critical thinking to the crowd. We base our view of truth on whatever people are saying at the moment, and if enough people say something, it seems credible to us, because we're social animals. Why would so many people say something if there weren't some truth to it, if there weren't some good reason to believe it? This is a cognitive bias that fascists love to exploit, because the main resource they have is a bunch of people willing to talk endlessly. Just talk and talk and talk forever without stopping. They don't care how long it takes to talk over you. They have all the time in the world. They don't care if anything they're saying is true. To them, truth is just whatever they need it to be. They don't care how bad it makes them look, because they already look as bad as one can. Every time someone argues with a fascist in good faith, anyone watching who isn't inclined began to look into the matter further comes away thinking, I guess that's a thing people are talking about now. The more arguments they hear about it, the more normal it all becomes, and the more they subconsciously start to think, well, there's got to be something to what they're saying, right? By virtue of the fact that it is being discussed, it must therefore be worth discussing. You see, the danger here isn't that a fascist might be more persuasive than their opponent. I guess that's also a danger, but that's rarely the case because they're stinky losers with Dumbo ideas. They're easy to make look foolish because they're fools. The big danger is that most people will forget the contents of the argument entirely, of any argument, and simply remember that an argument took place, that two people argued this, and both seem to believe what they were saying, and how should I know which of them is correct? Do you think they will remember any information or statistics cited in your argument? If you do, how many people sided with Dr. Pepsi Darlington in my quantum physics hypothetical earlier? That was only a few minutes ago. Do you remember? 0%. There was no Dr. Pepsi Darlington. That's a ridiculous name that I just made up. The physicist was named Dr. Pepsi Davidson, who 53% of the crowd of 250 people sided with. And even if you caught on to my genius ruse, do you still think you'll remember that name and that statistic a week from now, a month from now, a decade from now, long after I've been executed by the state? And if you did remember the contents of the argument, aren't you just as likely to remember lies and disinformation as the truth? Lies and disinformation which are much more plentiful because there's really only one truth and you can make up as many lies as you want? Dr. Pepsi Davidson doesn't even exist. Remember, to them, it is absurd to base one's view of truth on reality. That's what weak people without convictions do. If you need evidence for your position, you're too soft. You're not a useful ally because the minute reality contradicts your position, which it might do at any moment because it's always changing, you'll abandon it. Why, therefore, would they ever engage in good faith argumentation? What could they gain from that? It is us, it is their enemy who takes advantage of evidence and logic. It is incumbent on a fascist to delegitimize both, to make the process of finding or applying either so difficult and tedious that people stop relying on them entirely. Once we can no longer rely on evidence, logic, reason, then their irrational arguments are suddenly on an equal footing with everyone else's. Because when we can't tell the difference between information and disinformation, information ceases to have any power. You might notice that Elon Musk has a real hate boner for Wikipedia. You might notice that Trump really hates the Department of Education. This is why fascists ban books, they scrub data, and spread lies. Access to information only ever hurts their position. It is their prerogative to make sure people remain ignorant. Only an ignorant person would believe them. So they don't argue to convince people, to inform, or even misinform. If they do, that's a bonus. They argue to obstruct. It's crucial that you understand this, right? They argue not just to win the argument, but to delegitimize the process by which one might investigate truth, to make it impossible to tell which positions are and are not supported by evidence. They want to confuse, not educate. They cannot lose an argument because their strategy was never to win the argument. The strategy was merely to have an argument. That's why it's really fucking frustrating to see people gloat about defeating them rhetorically as though that matters. Like it's some great victory to be more persuasive than the guy who thinks being gay is a form of witchcraft. What a genius you must be to defeat that intellectual titan. They don't care. They're not trying to win an argument. In fact, I'm not sure it would be as useful for them if they did because they want the argument to happen forever. If they won and convinced us, everybody would stop talking about it. They want to keep the question open to maintain the pretense that this is a matter of legitimate disagreement, that there are persuasive arguments to support either position, that their arbitrary, frivolous conclusions should be treated with the same weight as everyone else's, and in so doing, become something you might not agree with, but must accept as a valid position that others hold. It can't be dismissed out of hand anymore. It requires a response. It requires your time. It must be debunked again and again for as long as they can pretend to believe it. You must waste your time. And this sounds pretty bleak, I know. You'd be forgiven for thinking that this makes fascist messaging just unbeatable. And I don't think it is. I think it's actually spectacularly easy to beat. None of what I'm saying precludes educating people and correcting fascist misinformation. The only time they are granted the advantage I'm discussing here is when they are allowed to participate in that process. By all means, feel free to correct their bullshit when they're not present. That is both good and necessary. Sadly, sometimes they are present. Sometimes fascists are around, and that's a problem we have to deal with. How do we defeat fascist messaging in person, face to face? And again, I think the answer is actually pretty simple, much simpler and easier than you might expect. There's a cost to be paid, of course, one that we need to be more comfortable paying, but we can always easily beat them, so long as we manage our expectations and are realistic about what we can achieve. Defeating fascist talking points is actually almost impossible to fuck up. Because you can defeat any fascist argument with one simple phrase. It always applies. Shut up, you're being an asshole. That's it. That's all you need to say. And here's why this works. While not everyone can articulate why, everyone can intuitively tell that these people are weird freaks. They're hateful, they're destructive, but most importantly for our purposes, deeply, deeply unlikable. And they always will be. They can't do nothing about it. Fascists are haters. As discussed, they must always have an enemy, and everything they say and do is designed to destroy that enemy. And so everything they say and do is always, unavoidably, either an insult or a direct threat to someone. They are always, always being a huge asshole. Everything they say to outsiders is designed to hide that, to send the message that actually, we're normal, we belong here, Mom said we can be here. They're not. They don't, and she didn't. They're weird, obsessive assholes, and we can leverage that. You must never show them common courtesy. You need to be immediately, emphatically hostile towards them. Make it known that they are not welcome, and you do not respect them or anyone who tolerates them. You must extract an immediate, severe social cost to the expression of, or tolerance for, fascist beliefs and arguments. You must make it known that such beliefs are not something you're willing to argue about, not something you'll hear out in good faith, not something you're willing to budge on, ever, that you will not respect anyone who does tolerate or condone them, that merely by suggesting these ideas, they have trespassed the boundaries of good taste and broken the peace. That may sound severe. It might even sound mean or close-minded or rude. If you're a New York Times columnist, you might think that it's like itself a kind of illiberal use of stochastic violence that a fascist might use. It's not any of those things. It's in fact the common sense way you would treat any asshole. And let me explain why with a helpful analogy. Imagine you're hosting a party, and this guy you don't really know that well shows up and starts loudly talking shit about your friend Amanda. They say Amanda's stupid and ugly, Amanda sucks, and Amanda's worse than everybody else at this party. And the party would be so much better if Amanda got kicked out and they got to have all of Amanda's beer. Would you be chill about that? Like, of course not, right? You would tell that person to fuck off and leave. They're being an asshole. You wouldn't feel obligated to hear them out. You wouldn't get into a polite debate about Amanda's merits. You wouldn't try to convince them that actually Amanda's pretty cool. She's good at Smash Brothers and you like her dog. Because if you care about Amanda and this guy's going around like ginning up hate for Amanda, you would kick him out of the party by force if necessary. Obviously, right? They're being an asshole. You don't have to let them do that. That behavior sucks. Why then? Would you behave any differently when they're doing the exact same thing, except that instead of insulting one individual Amanda, they're instead insulting entire categories of Amandas? When they claim that their race or their sexual orientation or their religion makes them better than all Amandas in the world. Someone who wasn't simply being an asshole at a party, but actively using the levers of power to harm Amanda and all Amandas like her. That is categorically worse. Far more Amandas are being insulted. Amandas are having their fundamental human rights taken away. Amandas are losing protections granted to them by the government, and they're being made second-class citizens, and they're being harassed and killed in the streets. Why would you be willing to hear that out? To debate the merits of the Amandas they're targeting? Why would you approach that in open dialogue? Why would it matter how politely they express their hateful intent to destroy Amanda? If somebody says they're going to kill your friend, you don't say, allow me to offer a counter-argument, good sir. And make no mistake, that is the end goal. To kill entire categories of human being. And if that isn't enough motivation for you, remember, those categories are negotiable and might soon include you if they don't already. Now, obviously, we can't kick fascists out of the world like we could kick an asshole out of a house party. But we can do the next best thing. We can expose them and make it known that they are not welcome in our spaces. Fascist thrives when they are granted respect and legitimacy, and they wither and shrink away when that legitimacy and respect are rightfully withheld. Thus, they will do everything in their power to appear legitimate and respectable, to pretend as though, actually, they're not being assholes. They're actually doing a different thing that you don't dislike. It's a meme, didn't you know? It's ironic. Actually, it's all about ethics in games journalism, or we have economic anxiety, or we're making some inscrutable point about free speech, or don't you think Israel has the right to defend itself? There is nothing a fascist hates more than other people observing them and describing their behavior. It is their kryptonite. They need to hide. Just don't let them hide. When you notice this, you kind of can't unsee it, right? Like, they always panic and get defensive if you just describe them. They will insist that you're not allowed to do that. It's bad to do that. It makes you look bad when you describe what they're doing, they'll say. Because they know their beliefs, their project is deeply unlikable. Every other political group on the planet is eager to tell you what they believe, because they think, rightly or wrongly, that you'll agree. Fascists know that you won't. They will always hide what they want. They will pretend not to be saying what they are obviously saying, because they know nobody likes it. They'll gleefully post white supremacist memes like right out in the open, but the minute you call them racist for it, they will shit and piss their entire pants about it. It drives them up the wall. How dare anyone call me racist simply because I said and did things to disparage other races? You don't know what's in my heart, knowing, as we do, that any attempt to justify their beliefs is meant to deliberately waste your time and dwindle your spirit. You just don't give them the opportunity. You don't get sucked into whatever lies and bullshit they throw out to confuse the issue. You don't engage with whatever nonsense they're making up in the moment. You let them spin their wheels, let them sputter uselessly, shadowboxing with an imagined enemy, while you remain focused on what matters. That they are assholes, that they need to shut up and also go away. You don't let them change the subject. You don't let them lead the conversation. You keep it focused on how they're being an asshole. Look how what you're saying is going to hurt people. Look what a weird freak you're being about it. I don't want to be around you. Nobody does. Because you're being a huge asshole. 3 key principles inform this approach. 1, staying on message. Maintain control of what the conversation is about. Don't let them lead you into a discussion about something else to confuse or sanitize the issue the minute they start losing. Every time they attempt to throw out some nonsense, simply repeat your point. Plainly state what is at stake, what they are doing, and do not allow them to obscure it. If pressed, say something like, "We're not talking about that right now. We're talking about this," and repeat your talking point. Number 2, if you're explaining, you're losing. One of the reasons fascists love misinformation so much is that when you debunk it, even when you're right, it makes you look suspicious. Because, like, the more you have to explain yourself, the less credible you appear to people. People naturally start to assume you just have some canned line to dismiss criticism. After all, how is it possible that every point that the fascist makes, and they make so many, is either dishonest or wrong? So, like, don't explain why they are wrong. Just call bullshit. You don't need to explain why it's bullshit. You let them try to explain why it's not. Put them on the back foot. They can't give evidence to support their positions. They don't believe in evidence, and there isn't any evidence for their positions. Let them twist in the wind, explaining themselves. Number 3, fascists are, by definition, hateful. Hate looks bad. Generally speaking, human beings tend to value kindness and dislike cruelty. Do not let them hide or obscure their hatred and cruelty. Make sure the conversation remains focused on exactly that they are being hateful. Look, everyone, look how hateful this is. And you don't need to explain why that hate is bad. It is generally understood that hate, in and of itself, is a bad thing. Let me give you an example of this strategy being deployed successfully. This is a clip from Real Time with Bill Maher, wherein Ben Affleck argues with Sam Harris and Bilbis himself about whether Islamophobia is a real concept, a thing which exists on Earth. Now, Ben Affleck, generally speaking, is not considered to be a public intellectual. I don't know if that's controversial to say. I certainly don't know the man, but his reputation, particularly at the time, is that of a himbo. A handsome-leaning man, but one of very little substance. And I doubt very much that's how he is as a guy. You know, he's an award-winning screenwriter, but that's how he was seen, especially then, right? He was the star of Geely. Maher and Harris, by contrast, somehow, defying all logic and reason, are considered public intellectuals. People think they're smart, worthwhile political guys. So they begin this conversation with all of the respect, all of the prestige. It is very much their argument to lose. I will leave it for others to decide whether Bill Maher or Sam Harris are explicitly ideologically fascist. Personally, I think both are just useful morons who are happy to hobnob with fascists, but I also think that that difference doesn't matter even a little bit. What does matter for our purposes is that they are arguing like a fascist might, using the strategies a fascist would use to defend a position which happens to be one that a fascist would hold. They start with a premise that the concept of Islamophobia is simply a shield that liberals use to defend Islam, even though that they should personally be allowed to be weird, bigoted creeps about Islam without people being allowed to get mad at them.
We have been sold this meme of Islamophobia where every criticism of the doctrine of Islam gets conflated with bigotry toward Muslims as people.
Right.
And that is it's intellectually ridiculous.
Good point, Sam Harris. Every time you criticize Islam, people take it as though it's some sort of criticism of Islam, when actually what it is a riddle. It's a magic riddle for you to solve. But Affleck keeps bringing the subject back to what matters. Look at how cruel you're being. Look how bigoted and gross what you're saying is.
Saying that Islamophobia is not a real thing. It really is.
I'm not denying that certain people are bigoted against Muslims as people. And that's a problem.
Bigotry.
But the
second this premise is challenged, they retreat and instead attempt to assert their legitimacy and respectability. They're reasonable people, and you're not allowed to treat their opinions as unreasonable, actually. That's rude, and you have to be above that. You're not allowed to discuss how what we're saying might hurt people. You have to discuss these ideas in a kind of vacuum where history didn't happen.
I'm actually well educated on this topic.
I'm asking you. Seriously.
You're not listening to
not.
what we are saying.
And you can see how frustrated this makes Maher and Harris. They just can't accept that Affleck refuses to engage with the dry-sounding minutia they prefer to discuss, the boring, sanitized justifications for their prejudice.
Ben, let me unpack this. Let me unpack this for you.
Please do.
We have just imagine some concentric circles here. You have at the center, you have jihadists. Those two circles arguably are 20% of the Muslim world.
What are you basing that research on?
A bunch of poll results that we can talk about. To give you one point of contact, 78% of British Muslims think that the Danish cartoonist should have been prosecuted. 78%. So I'm being conservative when I roll this back to 20%.
That completely unrelated statistic does imply you were being conservative about the 20% statistic. But wait a minute, doesn't that in turn kind of imply you made the 20% statistic up? That it was just kind of a guess that you're being conservative about? I thought it was a hard number. I thought it was a hard number that you had research you could discuss about it, but chose not to. Maher and Harris are bewildered that he's not taking the bait, that he seems so dead set on discussing the substance of what they're saying rather than letting them change the subject. But Ben doesn't play along. He doesn't let them obscure the ugliness of what they're saying behind boring-sounding statistics or platitudes.
Or how about the more than a billion people who aren't fanatical, who don't punish women, who just want to go to the store?
Wait a second. Wait a second.
Right. But Islam at this moment is the mother lode of bad ideas.
Jesus.
So we have
That's just a
ideas
fact.
like blasphemy.
It's an ugly
Apostasy.
He just keeps calling it gross. He hammers that home. It's gross.
But why are you so hostile about this?
It's gross. It's racist.
And it is, right? Hate is gross. Look how gross and weird and shitty they're being. Shut up. You're being assholes. And it fucking destroys them. They cannot deal with it. That's all you gotta do. It's that easy. The beauty of this approach is that it disrupts the fascists' primary objective in arguing with you. It takes away their ability to use the conversation to make their beliefs seem normal, to make it seem to anyone watching as though they're reasonable people asking reasonable questions. They're not. And you show people that by not treating them as though they are. Instead, you seize the opportunity to point out what weirdos they're being, to lay bare the pathetic hate at the center of their worldview. Don't let them drop it. Don't let them talk about a different thing that's more palatable. You keep things focused on the harm that they pose and how humiliated they should feel to be a part of it. They're being fucking losers. And it works because people get it. You can tell. Like, look at them. Look at these fucking losers. They should be ashamed of themselves, but they're not. So let's all get together and make them ashamed of themselves. Now, as I said, this strategy comes at a cost. All things in life do. They will use this. They will use your hostility to portray you, to portray anyone who opposes them, to portray the left as unreasonable and intolerant. They will use this to portray themselves as the victims of censorship. They will claim that we're afraid to confront their ideas because we have no arguments against them, so we simply shout them down. That we hate free speech because why else would you not want to hear someone say a bunch of awful shit? I know. That's not news to me. I know they will do that. Furthermore, I also know that this will be quite persuasive to a lot of people. And please really hear me now. Really listen, okay? Because most people get this wrong, so please hear me. You gotta let them. You gotta let them say those things, except that it will convince some very credulous people. I know it's frustrating, but you can't change it. Because, like, do you think that if you're super polite, if you do what they say and you're sweet and you ask probing questions and you give them a nice big hug and a mug of hot cocoa, that they'll be trapped and now they have to be nice to you? Do you think that they're evil genies and have to obey the rules they lay out? Fascists are haters. They're the haters. Haters talk shit. That's what haters do. You gotta let them hate. Let them say whatever mad shit they want. You can't stop them. They view you as part of a corruptive conspiracy trying to destroy human civilization. Do you think it will matter to them that you listened calmly and didn't call them names while you did that? Are you a fucking baby? Are you a little baby shitting in your diaper? I gotta calm down. I went way too aggro there for a second. I see that now. My point is that if it is convenient for them to say that you are censorious, prudish, or closed-minded, they'll just say you are. Even if you weren't. That will simply become part of the mythic truth and thus immune to questioning or counter-argument. You do not need to worry about giving them ammunition because no matter what you do, they will always manufacture ammunition. Oh, look how impolite you're being. You're not wearing a suit, and that's the reason that we're gonna let your country get annexed. Because of the suit thing, because of how rude that is. They'll tell you that you're not allowed to do this. You can't be angry with them. It makes you look bad. It makes you look aggressive and mean. And of course they will. Because they don't want you to do it. Because they're cowards and they can't handle conflict unless they know for certain they're going to be victorious in advance. Why would you let the haters tell you how to act? They don't have your best interest in mind. They hate you. They're not trying to be helpful. And the fear of being portrayed this way, of being portrayed as censorious, prudish, or closed-minded, which they will portray us as regardless, has held us back from pointing out what would otherwise be completely obvious to everyone who's paying attention. That these people are nightmare idiots, that they want the worst possible things to happen, and they are preposterously dumb and preposterously cruel, like Saturday morning cartoon villains who say more slurs. They're losers, they're assholes, nobody likes them, they need to go away. Polite discussion with them normalizes them. How dangerous could they be if we aren't treating them as though they are dangerous? If we treat them with respect, as they demand we do, does it not therefore follow that they are entitled to our respect? And I ask you, are they? Are they entitled to our respect? Why would you respect someone who wants to hurt innocent people? Why would you respect someone who bases their worldview on hatred? Those are not respectable qualities. Have you noticed that when you just describe what the Trump administration is doing, or what any of these other far-right ideologues gaining power across the world are doing, it sounds ridiculous to people who don't pay attention to politics. They hear you and they think, oh, of course you're going to say that. You don't like him, But if they were actually doing all of that bad stuff, people would be really mad and people would speak up and fight back. So, if you're not mad, if you're not immediately hostile, that kind of trains people to think this way. You're doing the work of the fascist for them because, the things they're doing should make you mad and upset. It is normal, quite understandable actually, to be made angry and upset by cruelty, by injustice. So you just you just observe them and describe them plainly, honestly, emphatically. Let go of the concern that your analysis might be labeled hyperbolic or hysterical by people who either aren't paying attention or are themselves nasty freaks with nasty freak political projects. You don't have Trump derangement syndrome. Trump does a lot of deranged things which sound deranged when described out loud. And yeah, that's gonna lose people. It will be divisive, as will anything in the world. Anything you say will lose some people. Anything will be divisive. The question we should be asking is, which people do we lose, and how many? Do we lose more than we lose by being sniveling cowards willing to collaborate with fascists rather than speak truth to power? My guess? Probably not. You might say to all of this, so much for the tolerant left. Tolerance is not a virtue, it is a concession. It is acceptance of something you may not like, but cannot change. You tolerate a topping you don't like on pizza. You don't tolerate injustice. We've allowed the far right to confuse tolerance with diversity and plurality. These are not things to be tolerated. These are things to be demanded. Things we fight to establish, maintain, and protect, not something we begrudgingly resign ourselves to. There's no contradiction here. Fuck off with your Karl Popper paradox of tolerance bullshit. These are word games played on paper. We should remain intolerant of bad behavior. That is not the same thing as being intolerant of a minority group simply because we use the same word to describe them both. You need not tolerate those who wish to harm innocent people. To do so is itself an act of harm. It is prioritizing peace and quiet over the safety of the targeted people, like a coward would do. Gavin Newsom, you're a coward. Or a collaborator, I don't know which. You must, at all times, make your hostility to fascists clear. You must be belligerent towards fascism. Because you won't reason them out of their positions. They're not reasonable people. You won't win them over with kindness. They don't value kindness. You can't defeat them by being calm, dispassionate, the adult in the room, because the things they're saying, the things they're doing should make you upset. And when you're not upset, what everybody hears is, these people aren't that dangerous. It is the far right who must be made to be tolerant, who must be made to accept that which they do not like, but will never be able to change, that people who are different from them are their equals and entitled to the same dignity, respect, and protection that they are. And if that makes them mad, then they're an asshole. Shut up. Oh, what a bitter irony it is. How poetic that in making a video about how fascists waste your time, I wasted like months making it. So I'm really gonna pivot to shorter, snappier videos. This isn't working. In any case, thank you for watching. Despite my tone, I'm very proud of this video, and I hope you enjoyed it and agree with my various takes within it. If the spirit moves you, please visit patreon.com/thoughtslime to pay me for the good job I'm doing. Also, please like and also please subscribe to me. Those are helpful actions you can take. Now, if you'll excuse me, I'm gonna eat an entire bee's nest. I'm gonna eat a whole bee's nest. And all of the bees are gonna have to deal with it.
Are those two things related, or did you just happen to start an account?
Yeah, I was using an alt where I like to act. Yeah, and just saying kind of stupid stuff. And I was like, hey, I'm gonna delete this because, you know, if this does get national headlines, but I guess it has. Like, I don't want people seeing like my dumb tweets about like, I don't know, thinking like a cartoon character is hot or something. Like, I don't know if I want the world to see that, you know. And so I made like a new account just in case it kind of blew up, and deactivated my old one, and it did blow up. If you do any protest, you know, you think, oh hey, maybe this could get big. I mean, in order for it to work, it kind of does need to be big. You know what I mean?
It needs to have eyes on it. It needs to have that attention.
Yeah. Because if I went to jail and no one heard about it and we know political change, it would kind of be pointless, you know?
So I guess then you can kind of go into what do you feel was the point of, because you went through a lot of effort. You sent emails, you sent letters, you basically let people know your intention beforehand as a kind of act of protest. So what is the intention behind everything, and what do you hope to accomplish with this?
You know, I said several times when talking to reporters and stuff, like, I'm not an intellectual, I'm not a philosopher, I'm not even really intelligent. My intent is honestly, I was really emotional, and I just like was really upset, and I just wanted to do like abstractly like something. And I kind of knew that, like, if this did blow up, it would just make them look so stupid and show how just objectively really, really evil this all is. And, I mean, that kind of worked. Like, people are seeing how evil it is. The people who sponsored the bill, they won't return, like, calls anymore from their constituents. They're, like they've, like, put up the mattresses, you know, as they would say. I think this has made a lot of people look bad. I guess my main goal is to show my dignity and to show trans people's dignity, because I don't really. Dignity is, I think, my philosophy. You know, I believe in dignity. You know, I'm not a leftist, I'm not a rightist. My philosophy is dignity, you know? Yeah.
One of the things I've kind of noticed as you've interacted with other people online has been that you've mentioned you've called yourself a centrist. And you also admit openly and talk about being Catholic.
Yes.
Now, those are two things that in the trans community aren't necessarily associated with most regular trans people. So I kind of wanted to ask you, how do you reckon being, because when I think of Catholics right now, and this is not, you know, this is not obviously for all Catholics.
I'm in my church's basement right now.
I will try and be nice. I am predisposed to being enemies with Catholics. I was raised Lutheran, so you understand. But when I think of the modern Catholic movement, I think of things like trad Caths, right, which are very close in proximity to like the alt-right, or I think of people like Matt Walsh, who are very heavy advocates of Catholicism, but obviously very against trans people. So I'm curious about how you leverage those two things.
Catholic. Have you noticed?
No, he's not. Yeah, he's not at all.
Which is so weird, because I think there's a great tweet about how a lot of these like Daily Wire bros, you know, a lot of them are just like very much like overcompensating, because they're all these like theater kids who are like trying to do this weird performative version of masculinity instead of just like normal masculinity, and they're like, I smoke cigars, I own a gun. It's like, okay, there's a lot of men who do that and they don't make it their personality because they're not losers, you know. I mean, much love to them. I love everyone, even Matt Walsh, but yeah, I think his statements are really ugly and destructive. I think a lot of people, it's weird seeing in my opinion, the weird dissidence and difference between the Catholics on the internet, you know, the internet real reactionary Catholics and like actual Catholics. Because like if you ask like anyone in my youth group what they think about like some political issue, they're like, I don't know, I don't watch the news. You know, I'm not, a lot of my friends aren't on social media even, you know, they're just kind of like, they like to spend all the time at like the Catholic Church and like pray and like read like books from like 4 centuries ago about like Ignatian meditation. You know, they're not thinking about, we need to be a real reactionary. We need to be, you know, legislating this, legislating that. Most of my friends don't even know that like bathroom bills are a thing. Like they're very much living under a rock. And I think that's really cool. You know, I like to type on a typewriter. I wish I could live under a rock. I guess I can't really anymore. But I don't know, I think that's cool. You know, I feel like Catholics online aren't really Catholics. It's just like these weird, you know, it's these weird sort of Curtis Yarvin reactionary types. You know, the thing about Curtis Yarvin is, you know, you can read his philosophy and be like, oh, you know, sort of America's King, that's kind of interesting. Oh, you know, we can do all, we go into all this reactionary, you know. At the end of the day, the dude, if you look at him in real life, he's not, like, he's not really a good guy. Like, he's like a, I don't know if you've heard the rumors, but he's like, kind of like, I've heard he's a rapist and stuff. Like, I want people to be normal, you know. I miss when people were normal, you know. Like, this is weird. I just want people to be normal. Like the Daily Wire bros, they think they have this weird definition of normalcy, which is really weird. Like, their definition of normalcy is like going to CPAC and saying we want to eradicate transgenderism. Like, that's weird. The fact that that was even a speech and that came to thunderous applause, like, that's a whole new thing. No one was saying that 10 years ago. People hated us, but no one was saying that 10 years ago. That's weird. It's also performative. You know, it's, Baudrillard talked about this and how everything's become simulacra, you know, become so removed from reality. I think that's really true. I think we have become removed from reality, and I think it's very sad.
So I guess I'm kind of curious with why would you call yourself a centrist? Because it doesn't seem to me, just from what you've said, doesn't seem like you are necessarily like very politically active.
Yeah.
Like you're not it doesn't seem like you are, from everything I've read, like going to rallies and going to like local meetups and like, so I guess I kind of connect the dots then for me, why you would want to take on this big act of protest, because to me it kind of seems like jumping into the deep end, if that makes sense, when you're talking about this like political conversation that's happening.
I guess so. Yeah. I don't know. I don't think trans should be political. That's my opinion. You know, like, I'll be honest, everyone's talking about tariffs right now and like talking really intelligently about tariffs. I don't know my opinion on tariffs. I don't know how they work really entirely, you know, but I do know that like when people like say ugly stuff about like groups of people wanting to die, when I see like people on the internet like saying really anti-Semitic stuff too, that stuff bothers me, you know, like as a human being. And I'm like, no, I don't like that, you know? And yeah, like my ideology is dignity. My political ideology is dignity. I don't like this graperism. I don't like this like rabid transphobia where people are calling, like, I mean, the governor of North Carolina guy, he was like saying that we were like filth and stuff. Like, that's scary. Like, I think that's wrong and that's like evil, and I don't support that. You know, I don't know. I've been discriminated against before. I've been treated badly, and you know, I just don't like that, and I don't like it when it happens to other people. I don't like what's happening. I don't like how everyone's becoming angry. You know, people need to love each other more.
You're obviously knowledgeable enough about places like the Daily Wire, the things Matt Walsh and Michael Knowles have said. So I guess I'm kind of interested still, and I'm sorry to kind of harp on this again, but it is a very fascinating like position you're in as somebody who wanted to make this big but it is a very fascinating level enough about places like the Daily Wire, the things Matt Walsh and Michael Knowles have said. So I guess I'm kind of interested still, and I'm sorry to kind of harp on this again, but it is a very fascinating like position you're in as somebody who wanted to make this big, and I agree with you that the idea of somebody being trans shouldn't be a political statement, but the fact of the matter is that many people do just see it as a political statement right now. And a lot of that has been generated from the right wing. Well, almost all of that has been generated from right-wing sources like the Daily Wire.
I don't like when the right does that. I think it's wrong.
Well, and I'm just kind of curious then why you would, I guess, do you just not align yourself more with the left because you feel you don't have enough of a education on it? Sorry about my dog.
Yeah, I don't really think I'm particularly intelligent enough to spout off on other political issues. I'll be 100% real with you. And I could like play pretend on social media and be like, I'm a political genius and then I know everything. But I mean, I'm 20. Like I'm kind of a dumbass, you know, like I don't know everything. And most of my understanding of politics comes through like the window of like theology and of like how Thomas Aquinas would talk about like political prudence and stuff, but not sort of through like I couldn't walk you through Marx is like different schools of Marxism. Like I couldn't do that, you know. But I could.
So do you have any like spaces online where you interact with a lot of other trans people, or are you kind of the only, because you mentioned you're part of like a prayer group and a study group. Are you kind of the only person in your social circle who's trans?
Yeah.
So you don't really like go online and interact with other trans people through the internet or anything?
I've gone online before and I've seen other trans people, and I think trans people are cool. I like other trans people, you know, but yeah, I don't really interact a lot. Like I'm not like in online like support groups or anything like that. Yeah, but I don't know. I generally like other trans people, you know, like any group of people, you know. I like them. Yeah.
How has your friends and family, your social circle, how have they taken this news, this development?
They're worried about me because I could go to prison. And their main concern is like, Mercy, why would you do that? You're putting yourself in so much danger. I mean, that's a valid concern. I think about that a lot. Yeah.
Do you regret doing it?
I don't think so. I remember I originally spouted off to Romy. I was talking to her right after I got out of jail, and I was on a call with her, and I was kind of like still really distraught about it all because I mean, it was pretty horrible. And Romy's the reporter who was the first one to report on me. I also talked to Sam from Aaron in the Morning, and I was talking to Romy, and she was like asking me if I regretted it or whatever. And I don't know. I said yeah at the time. I don't think so anymore because I think it's made this cultural change even a little bit. But I don't know. I want to make change. You know, I want this world to be better, you know, than like before this protest. But I mean, if I was just doing it on my own and no one ever saw it and never made any change, never got headlines, I probably wouldn't have done it because it really, really sucked. And jail was really, really horrible and I hated it. But at least it's made an impact, you know? I would go to jail 100 times if it meant things would be better for us, if it would change the status of the way trans people are treated in this country, the way people act. I think the way people really act these days about transgenderism is really abhorrent. And it's not even remotely biblical. It is reactionary, and I think it's gross.
Could you walk us through kind of what the experience actually was of being arrested, of going to jail, and how that kind of ended up happening?
So I'm an old-fashioned person. I don't really do. I guess I have to do. I'm doing technology now, but I'm not really that tech savvy. So I wrote letters. I wrote 160 letters, 158 for all Florida state representatives and senators, and one for DeSantis and one for the Florida Attorney General. So even 160. And I sent them. I drew a bunch of like smiley faces and flowers in the letters and stuff when I'm doing my signature, just saying like, I don't know. I honestly believe in hope is a theological virtue. You know, I really believe in the best nature of everyone, you know, even people who hate me. And I wrote them letters saying, hey, I love you, but I'm gonna break the law. You know, and I said that, like, you know, like, that I have dignity. And I think you know it too. And I was relying on them to not arrest me. That's what I was sort of hoping on. You know, and I always knew it was a possibility, but I didn't really think, I don't know. People have been calling me naive on the internet, and that's probably true. I have a lot of hope. I don't feel like people have hope these days. I really do love the trans folks. I really do. And I wrote these letters hoping I wouldn't be arrested, and I was arrested. When I went to the Florida Capitol at like 2:50 p.m., I said the time they said was 3, but I was there at 2:50. I got there and I walked up to the bathroom across from room 222A, and which is where I sent the letter. And there was a bunch of police officers and stuff there, and they told me, like, you can't go in here. It's against the law. We're gonna arrest you if you go in here. And I said, okay, I'm gonna go into the bathroom. And I walked into the bathroom, and I washed my hands. Originally, I was gonna pray a rosary, but I didn't have time. And then they came in there after me after a couple seconds, and they said, you need to leave the bathroom, otherwise you're going to be breaking the law. And I said I refuse to leave. And then they told me to come with them, and then they brought me downstairs to the police station. Originally they were going to give me a notice to appear, but it honestly felt like such a cop-out because I could still get the same charge and I'd still get the same prison sentence, but it would be like I had to promise to be good and not to go up in the women's bathroom anymore. I had to promise to lick the boot and you know, be real sorry. And that's kind of what it felt like when I was talking to these officers. And it felt so cruel and wrong. And so I was like, you know what, maybe I will use the women's bathroom. You don't know. You don't know what I'll do. Maybe I will, you know. And then they handcuffed me. And I sat in the chair handcuffed for a while they wrote their police report, and then they put me in the police car and stuff. And they drove me to Leon County Jail, where they like processed me and stuff. Like, it's super weird because like almost every one of the like employees in jail who I would tell about what would happen, they were just like, what the fuck? You know, like I remember like telling one of the employees what happened, like, did this happen? Because he asked me what I was in for, and he just started like almost bawling, laughing, like, what the fuck? You know, just like laughing a lot. Like, I mean, even the police officers who drove me to Leon County Jail, like, when I told them what I was in for, they like told me the law was wrong. They're like, yeah, this law is wrong, but like, it's our job, you know. They're just following orders. But, you know, yeah. Jail was horrible. It was disgusting. It was scary. Everyone in there was like really scary. I didn't have a cellmate, thank the Lord, but like it was gross and dingy, and everyone, like when I would go do my 20 and I'd look at the other cells, everyone looked like they wanted to murder me. And like the staff were honestly in prison were really, or not prison, jail, were really horrible generally and kind of mean. You know, like they acted like I murdered someone, but I didn't murder anyone. I just washed my hands. You know, it's crazy. And when I got there, they like processed me and they like took my stuff. They even took my Virgin Mary medal, and I thought you were allowed to take religious items, but I guess you're not. But like, it just sucked because they just like, I was wearing like this actually. I'm wearing this because this is what I was wearing when I got arrested. I was also wearing some bracelets, but like, I don't know. They took this from me. They took all my stuff from me. They put me in a two-piece blue sort of jumpsuity thing, and they just made me sit down in this box. And I spent a day, you know, like not like a day, like oh I spent my day, but like I spent 25 hours in like this box, you know, with actual bars, and like. It was so gross. There was like toilet paper on the walls. There was like weird graffiti, and like, I had troubles with a mattress, and like, the meat made me really sick. It was all really gross and weird, and I just hated it all.
So you've been on social media since then. You've been kind of, I think it's fair to say you've been kind of poking and prodding at a lot of the conservatives and the other people online. And I've seen you talk to them and say, like, you know, even though you hate me, I still love you.
Yeah.
But I'm curious, how does it make, because you have to have also seen the hundreds and hundreds, and I don't even need to have seen them because I know what Twitter's like, the hundreds of comments that are probably telling you, oh, you don't belong in a woman's restroom. Probably just, I'm willing to bet just horrible things. Like from threats to ill wishes to everything else. How are you kind of processing that's the way these people are, you know, meeting your peaceful protest?
Yeah, I'll be honest with you. I was actually reading something before this interview. I actually kind of wanted to cry a little bit, but I still love them. You know, like, they just want us to get angry and say, and to just, they want to get us a reaction out of us. And, you know, love is the ultimate undoer of, like, no, I'm not going to hate you. I'm going to be the better person. I'm going to turn the other cheek. You may hate me, but I'm always going to love you. And there's something really powerful to that of, you know, they can call us all sorts of names. They can call us pedophiles. They can call us groomers. They can say we're going to rape people and that we're dangerous and we're men and we're scary. You know, but also love them. And that makes them really upset. You know, the CEO of Giggle, that like atrocious, like narcissistic fucking turf, you know, website or whatever. She blocked me right after, but she was like, when she said something nasty to me, I said, I love you and I'll pray for you. And then she got like so angry at it, which honestly shows that, I think a lot of this is more than just physical, and more than just like corporal. I think that a lot of this stuff is very spiritual. I think when people are really angry and want a group to die, I think that's a really scary thing. But I also think it has origins that are not good in nature, spiritually. And I'm trying to like say this without sounding like a loony or religious nut, but I think when someone just virulently hates a group of people, whether that's black people or gay people or women or trans people or Jewish people, I think there's something deeply spiritually wrong there, and there's a bad influence there. You know, the thing that will make them the most angry is just telling them you love them. You know, and that's not why I do it. I don't do it to make them angry. You know, but I won't let them bring me down to their level. Because I'm always going to love them, no matter how they treat me. Because I love the people who've discriminated against me in my life. I love the people who've hurt me in my life. You know, because, yeah, I love them. Yeah. I don't know if that makes any sense.
It does. On the other side of the coin, you received kind of an instant outpouring of support from a lot of trans people, a lot of queer people, a lot of people just kind of on the more progressive left side. Has that made you want to continue your advocacy, because you kind of overnight now have this platform? You know, not everybody gets national headlines written about them. To advocate for these big issues that a lot of other people are also struggling with and a lot of other people are afraid of. And so have you given thought to how you might try and use that platform in the future?
Yeah, I think I maybe need to get more versed on politics. And I think I'm gonna probably lean more to the left in the future and sort of explore left-wing politics, because I mean, I've always known there's not really a place for me in the right, and I don't belong in the right. but I don't know. I want to again. I want to get more educated before I speak too much on politics because I'm not a deeply educated person. But yeah, I do want to advocate for trans rights, absolutely, and I want to spend a lot of time advocating for that. Advocating for dignity. You know, I think one area where the trans community always sort of fumbles the ball is, I think, you know, we see a lot of weirdo fanatics who are saying, you know, you can't be trans, it's this, it's wrong, it's that, you know. And we kind of take the bait of saying, no, you know, everything is perfect, everything is fine, everything is great, there's nothing wrong, everything is wrong ever, which is always a bad bait to take. You know, the better answer is, why won't you treat us with dignity? You know, because that's the real question. Why won't they treat us with dignity? Because I want to be treated with dignity. You know, that's what I want. I want my trans brothers and sisters to be treated with dignity. That's my philosophy. You know, I want everyone to be treated with respect and love, and it's not remotely Christian or moral to talk about a group of people as disgusting freaks. Because that's how they see us. They see us as disgusting freaks. They call us pedophiles. They call us all sorts of things. They call us rapists.
Where are you still in Florida?
No, I'm not in Florida.
Okay. You were just visiting in Florida.
I was just visiting Florida. My family has property down there, and I was just checking it out. Not my immediate family. You know, I'm not a trust fund kid, but you know, I have some my grandparents have property down there, and I was like, I'm gonna go there. Let's check that out. You know, and it was cool. I have a lot of relatives in Florida, so it's like, you know, it's a lot of memories and family and stuff tied up with it. You know what I mean?
So I was kind of on the subject of your family. I was kind of wondering, how are you like regarded? Again, it's just when people think of a young trans person, devout Catholic is not generally the first thing that springs to mind. So like, how are you kind of regarded by your family, by your community? Is your congregation like very supportive of you?
It depends on the person. I'll be real. I have some friends who really, really deeply care about me and love me. And there's some people who, you know, may still love me, but don't understand me entirely, you know, and that's why I'm here to educate. I think I'm put on this earth partially to educate people about trans people, definitely. And I don't know if my sort of nature on Twitter of telling people I love them and turning the other cheek in terms of transphobes and people saying nasty things, if that seems unusual, I think it's just kind of, I know it's usual to me, you know. I've had a lot of people hurt me in my life, and I really will always still love them, you know, and that's a core philosophy I've had. And it's gotten me far, I think. It's really hard to just, especially if you've known someone, to just sort of, there's definitely been some people who, when they first met me, I have some very conservative friends. When they first met me, were very skeptical of me and were even a little bit rude. But when they got to know me, they're like, I totally changed their opinion on trans people just by knowing me. And I think that's a way trans people can make change, is to not stay in our bubbles, you know, it's to actually go to a lot of people who might be more skeptical of us and show them our love for them, you know, and love them fully, and their hearts will change. Yeah.
So you've probably seen then on, you know, other social media, on news. Are you familiar with Nancy Mace?
Yeah, unfortunately.
Unfortunately. And
she's very archetypal. I think she very much represents an archetype of, you know, turfism, you know, which isn't even feminism. It has nothing to do with feminism at this point. I think she represents a sort of archetype of transphobia. I think she's the platonic ideal of a transphobe, I think, in a lot of ways. Sorry, continue. You were asking a question. I interrupted.
No, it's honestly, you're. I think you're dead on there. I was going to ask, kind of, you know, she has been leading the Capitol Hill charge as far as the, you know, this keeping trans people out of bathrooms fight, and the fight that she's picked on Capitol Hill with trans Representative Sarah McBride.
Yeah.
And I'm kind of wondering if you were able to say something directly to Nancy Mace, what would it be?
I love you. I would say that to everyone, you know, and I think it's also partially because I do really love her, but also because I think it's not what she would expect.
Another point of the pushback, and you mentioned you got a little bit of pushback from trans people who have said that, you know, you've mentioned several times now how much you want everybody, even people who hate you, even people who disagree with you, to be treated with love, to be approached in love. And you've had a lot of people say that for that you're naive. And I think where they're coming from is a much more, like a much more, also a much more politically active place where they've kind of been, not to quantify Twitter as like some, you know, real battlescape, but they've been on the front lines and dealing with this for years and years and have seen it evolve to the point where you do have people like Nancy Mace saying slurs. So I guess kind of how do you take that criticism of being naive in stride? How does it, I mean, it can't feel good to be called that, especially when you've been to jail.
Yeah, I do kind of, you know, I do find it really ugly when, like, you know, like the first trans woman to be arrested in the vacuum bills, like the girl who literally went to bat and like went to jail for my beliefs about trans rights. You know, like I'm the one like being accused of not being trans rights enough. I just think, I don't know, I think about optics too. I love these people because I genuinely love them, but I also do think about optics, and like I think it's really bad optics if we're just shouting all the time, because that's what they want to portray us as. And it's not really true that we're just like these angry, hyper-political people. But, you know, I mean, obviously I understand being political and people are trying to get rid of us, like, duh, like, but I think the best way to counter it is love. You know, love changes the world. You know, I think about the Roman Colosseum. You know, I'm a bit Italian, not 100%, but I'm a little bit Italian. And I think about the Roman Colosseum, the martyrs who would be killed in the Roman Colosseum.
This YouTuber has just been arrested and is facing 5 years in prison after disturbing a restricted island and violating international law, all to film content and leave this ancient remote tribe a can of Coke. Ladies and gentlemen, we might have a new contender for the Hall of Fame of complete morons.
An American tourist has been arrested for allegedly traveling to a restricted reserve on a remote island and leaving behind a can of Coke as an offering for the world's most isolated tribe to try. Mikhailo Viktorovich Polyakov was arrested in India's Andaman and Nicobar Islands after he allegedly visited a prohibited tribal reserve on North Sentinel Island without authorization.
So apparently we're doing this for content now. Well, that's a nightmare of an island that has for some reason attracted the wildest form of unwanted tourism, now including Mikhailo Polyakov, a 24-year-old American YouTuber known for thrill-seeking adventure vlogs and now for violating international law. He goes by the Neo-Orientalist on YouTube and has a few thousand subscribers and is currently making headlines for illegally landing on the North Sentinel Island, home to the famously uncontacted Sentinelese tribe. You know, the people who've made it extremely clear that they want nothing to do with the outside world, like arrow to the head level of clear.
Tucked away in the picturesque waters of the Bay of Bengal exists a tiny island that has captured imaginations for centuries. But its beauty as a tropical paradise is not what has garnered attention. Rather, it is the often violent, uncontacted tribe that calls the island home. For most, this island is a window into the past and an opportunity to understand how ancient people lived. But for some, this island has become their final resting place.
Well, what did Polyakov actually do? He showed up to Point Blair, the capital of the Andaman of the Nicobar Islands, with the camera, an inflatable boat, and apparently zero regard for history or laws. On March 29th, he set off solo on his boat, which, by the way, I guess is the YouTube version of Hold My Beer. After a 9-hour journey, he reached the northeastern shore of the North Sentinel Island, ready to go full Columbus, but instead of smallpox and holy crosses, he brought a Diet Coke and a coconut, not even a full meal. Just a weird snack combo and a whistle. Come on, dude. And with this whistle, he tried to get the tribe's attention. And obviously blowing a whistle at an uncontacted tribe, I guess that's how you get a collaboration invite.
Polyakov spent roughly an hour blowing a whistle from his inflatable boat in hopes of drawing attention to himself, but received no response. He landed on the island for roughly 5 minutes, during which he collected samples, recorded a video, and left behind a can of soda and a coconut as offerings for the Sentinelese tribe.
I feel like the ingredients of a Diet Coke would probably burn a hole in the tribe's stomach, man. Like, let's just, let's chill here. Let's not leave that for them. But thankfully, he didn't make contact. For his own sake, but also he did collect some sand, film on the beach, and then I guess peaced out like it was some regular beach day. Mission Trespass on Sacred Land is complete, but here's the plot twist. Back on the mainland, some local fishermen saw what he was up to and reported him. Polyakov was arrested on March 31st, now faces multiple charges, including violation under India's Foreigners Act and tribal protection laws. If convicted, he's looking at up to 5 years in Indian prison, which is a pretty steep price for a simple vlog title. Why are some influencers committing crimes in countries where you would never ever want to go to prison at? I mean, we just covered Vitaly. Why would you ever break laws in countries that have prisons that look like this? But also, honestly, the amount of time sounds a little short for what he actually did. Because let's be real, what he did wasn't brave. This is just incredibly reckless. Indigenous groups, legal experts, and common sense all agree that you don't mess with the Sentinelese. Not because they're scary, well, they are as well, but because we are. We carry diseases that they've never been exposed to. Contact could wipe them out, like it did so many other tribes throughout history. But you know, for the sake of this video, let's put all the dangers to the tribe aside. Let's put all the international law to the side. Let's just say this is an extremely stupid move considering how multiple journalists, missionaries, and many more have died for attempting to do this exact thing. So for those who don't know, let me break down what this island is and why this tribe has a history of people needing to stay far away from it. All right. Picture this, a beautiful tropical island straight out of a travel brochure, white sand, blue water, lush jungle, and if you step foot on it, you might get hit with an arrow.
Hey, you're that IRL streamer, aren't you? I used to do content like you until I took a 2.5 meter long arrow to the knee.
This is exactly where all those Skyrim guards went. So welcome to North Sentinel Island, where the local vibe is no visitors ever. It's home to the Sentinelese, possibly the last uncontacted tribe on Earth. And when I say uncontacted, I mean they've been ghosting humanity for thousands of years. These people are the real-life version of hardcore Minecraft. They're like that tribal YouTube channel that went like super viral for building crazy stuff with mud, but minus the excavators because, you know, they were also exposed for that. So while neighboring islands have been colonized, developed, and turned into places where you can probably get Wi-Fi and an overpriced smoothie, North Sentinel Island have stayed essentially stuck in time on purpose. They basically told the rest of the world that they don't want any technology. No, thank you. The first time they were caught on camera, you could literally see them try to put arrows through the people filming.
At last, the first glimpse of the Sentinelese. This tribe believes in total isolation. It will not tolerate a stranger.
As is obvious in the footage, the tribe had no interest in making friends and rather buried half of the gifts they'd been given before shooting arrows toward the film crew.
A member of our film unit was wounded by one of the many arrows, each 2.5 meters long.
So either Mikhailo saw this, did his research beforehand and said, screw it, a 2.5 meter arrow, that ain't that bad. Or he didn't prepare for this trip at all. But I have a feeling he kind of did because he showed up with a coconut. And we will learn later on that the only contact that humans have had that has been a positive contact with this island has been because they were bribing them with coconuts. But if it was up to me, one simple Google search would that would make my mind up. I wouldn't go. Took me 15 seconds to realize I would never want to go to that island. But I've also realized that there's a very big difference in how normal people operate and think compared to the people that I normally cover here on this channel. There's a very big difference. Well, the first real sighting of this island came in 1771 when a British ship spotted flickers of fire on shore, probably cooking dinner or prepping the arrows. Hard to say. But things got real in the 1890s when an escaped prisoner washed up on the island. Search parties went to look for him and they found him full of arrows. Definitely not a warm welcome. That's more like get off my lawn, but in a really intense way. Fast forward to the 1960s, Indian anthropologists decided to go play National Geographic and roll up with boats full of gifts, coconuts, metal tools, plastic stuff, basically just this weird early version of an Amazon delivery. First visit, nobody home. The tribe, I guess, just dipped into the jungle, left their huts, fires, and food behind like you weren't invited. But then came this rare moment of success in the 90s, where an anthropologist named Madhumala Chattopadhyay oh no. It's when an anthropologist named joined the crew. First woman to try, by the way, and the team floated coconuts towards the beach. And the Sentinelese actually came out to grab them. I mean, one guy even checked out the boat like he was browsing a used car lot. So that was cool because it was calm, peaceful, no one got stabbed. Great. But the next visit, things escalated. Because since 1996, it's been straight up illegal to go anywhere near this North Sentinel Island. The law says don't go within 3 nautical miles unless you're trying to get featured in some news headline saying tourist impaled by dozens of arrows on this remote island. And that's exactly what happened to some fishermen.
2 men aged 48 and 52 were fishing for mud crabs near the island. However, the pair got so drunk that while sleeping, the anchor of the boat, which was a rock tied to a rope, fell apart and drifted the men toward North Sentinel. The following morning, fellow fishermen said they tried to shout at the men and warn them that they were in danger. However, they did not respond. They were probably drunk, and the boat drifted into the shallows where they were attacked and killed.
Yeah, that's a rough fishing spot. You go out to fish and get a little drunk, and you end up in the worst possible spot ever. But recently, this also happened to another American tourist in 2018. Enter John Allen Cho, a 26-year-old missionary, adventurer, and how do I put it, a guy with a terrible plan. Because I guess he hired a fisherman to smuggle him to the island because he wanted to convert the Sentinelese to Christianity, which is a very bold move. Honestly, I'm kind of surprised that Jehovah's Witness hasn't tried this yet, but I guess that just goes to show you that some front lawns can't even be passed by a Jehovah's Witness. But this guy actually wrote in his diary, "My name is John, I love you and Jesus loves you," and the Sentinelese were like, "Cool story, here's an arrow." Apparently even his Bible was hit with an arrow, and according to the people from his mission, this wasn't like John just got up and decided to do this on a whim. He tried to prepare for this.
Although, according to the head of the mission he was working for, John was significantly more prepared. All Chow's decisions, including his studies of sports science and training and working as a wilderness emergency medical technician, and classes he took in linguistics and cultural anthropology, were in preparation to share Jesus with the North Sentinelese. He was very well prepared for this moment.
So he was as prepped for this as a person, I guess, could be, and still it ended very badly. Almost like this shouldn't be attempted no matter what you try to do. The actual breakdown of what happened to John happened over 3 days. Day 1, he paddled over in a kayak carrying fish, gifts, and a Bible. When he got near the beach, the Sentinelese shot arrows at him, including one from a kid that nailed his waterproof Bible. And listen, if a child shoots an arrow through your scripture, that's probably your divine sign to turn around. But did Chow leave? No, of course not. He tried again. This time he wrote in his journal, "God, if you want me to be killed, so be it." Dude, if you believe in God, you can also argue that God gave you a brain to avoid this. But on day 3, the fishermen watched from a distance as the Sentinelese dragged his body across the sand and buried it. John Allen Cho was killed, just like nearly every person before him who tried to enter this island without permission. So why all the secrecy? Why the arrows? Well, again, beyond protecting their culture, there's a very real risk. The Sentinelese have zero immunity to common diseases, and even a cold could wipe them out. So yes, going there could literally be fatal to them and to you. I mean, even a Diet Coke could kill them, but I don't know. The point is, none of us know. A random YouTuber like Mikalo for sure doesn't know. And at the end of the day, North Sentinel isn't a lost island. It's not a mystery to solve. It's a community that just wants to be left alone. And honestly, just kind of respect that. And let's be real. If the first 5 arrows landing right next to you won't, maybe the 6th will. Now, Mikalo is currently detained in India and is due back in court on April 17th. But honestly, this was the best case scenario for something as stupid as this because he didn't actually manage to make contact with them. He got arrested instead of dying in some horrific way, and he will likely get to enjoy the rest of his life without it ending with like 80 million arrows in himself. But guys with live streams and cameras, we gotta chill. Whether you're in Japan or Korea, streaming in public in New York City, or just trying to go to an internationally restricted island, respect the boundaries. The Sentinelese, they don't want followers, they're not interested in your clout, and they definitely don't want your can of Diet Coke. But at least he didn't live stream himself driving into a store to simply see what would happen like this guy did. So you can check out that video right here. And other than that, if you're new here, feel free to subscribe, and I'll see you in the next video. Peace.
of the rich people that I've seen in my life or have met, the tech people are by far the creepiest.
Absolutely.
And their intentions are by far the worst. I don't think they care, not only about America, I don't think they're fans of humanity.
Totally.
You shouldn't get so crazy rich that you go, how do I terraform another planet? It shows you the emptiness of money, which it is, life is not about having lots of money. What Elon has done, I think, has exposed that there is no amount of money, no amount of money that you can give a human being where they won't Heil Hitler for kicks.
All right, so it looks like some of Joe Rogan's closest comedy friends have been trashing Elon Musk, which I'm sure is making Joe really uncomfortable because obviously he's like one of the biggest Elon simps out there. And now a big part of his podcast is him just doing damage control and PR for Elon. But you know, even with all the glazing and ass kissing Joe does, it's still not enough for Elon. And I'm sure he gets annoyed that Joe doesn't tell his friends to stop making fun of him. Like, Joe's got to be nervous about his comedy friends going too hard on him and upsetting him and ruining their friendship, because I'm sure Joe knows Elon is really sensitive. I mean, recently the guy almost started crying because people were trolling him while he's playing video games. And then he needed all his Sims to tweet about it and help him get sympathy by acting like he just got horrifically bullied while playing video games. It's so funny. And also at the end of last year, Elon, he started begging people to post more positive content on Twitter because he couldn't handle how much he was getting made fun of. But obviously that didn't work. So then a week later, he changed the algorithm to promote more positive content, even though I don't think that really worked either. But Joe obviously knows Elon doesn't handle getting made fun of very well. I mean, Joe was just on Kill Tony, and they had on Kyle Dunnigan, who was impersonating Elon, and Joe looked like he was thinking, man, I hope Elon doesn't get offended by this, because I'm sure Elon's already constantly coping over Tim Dillon making fun of him. I mean, Tim's been trashing him like crazy, which Joe has to be stressed about. I mean, I honestly wouldn't be surprised if Elon complains about this to Joe, because obviously he gets offended very easily, and Tim has just been roasting the shit out of him. So since Joe is good friends with Tim and has him on the podcast all the time, I'm sure Elon has tried to get Joe to tell Tim to stop making fun of him.
Legalize comedy. Yeah.
What kind of truck would Blade Runner drive? That was the design idea.
I mean, this is the problem with these people. What kind of truck would Blade Runner drive? I mean, we're just handing the whole entire world over to like fucking nerds and freaks. First of all, the Cybertruck's disgusting. We can all kind of admit that. It's a heinous looking car. They explode, they go into trees and they explode and stuff. They're not good. Like, they don't look dignified or classy on the road. I don't know who that appeals to. Now, I understand there's man-children out there that want to fly rockets to Mars because they can't fly their penis into a vagina. But I'm telling you right now, this is the grossest and cringiest shit anyone has ever seen in a very long time. And also, he's a guy that believes that we have to go to Mars and merge with AI and no longer be humans. And no one seems to question that. I don't think populism, as has been described, includes merging with machines and going to Mars. This isn't a movie where the movie ends with Elon putting you on his spaceship and going to Mars. You're not going to Mars. I'm sorry about that. These people are also the elites. Which you people talk about the elites, and I talk about it myself. Because the elites are completely out of touch, but these elites are also out of touch. It's also out of touch to think that the biggest issue is let's go to Mars. Go talk to a working family that can't put food on the table. See how many times they mention Mars. I don't know why it's happening, and I disagree with close friends of mine who think Elon Musk is the savior of this is Jesus. If Jesus came back, he'd be Elon Musk. He'd come through South Africa and design cars that don't need gas. And buy X. The guy's a billionaire who wants to go to Mars, and normal people are going, what the fuck is this? I can't get a knee operation.
So Tim and Joe have completely different opinions on Elon, and Tim might have been referring to Joe at the end there. But it's just hilarious because Joe spends so much time defending Elon and praising him as much as he possibly can to make him happy. So he keeps coming on the podcast and hanging out with him. But now Rogan's comedy friends might start to ruin that for him because they're kind of negating all the positive PR Joe does for him. And I'm sure Elon's pissed about it. And this is also kind of exposing how Joe will do anything to defend him. It doesn't matter how delusional it makes him look. I mean, like with the salute Elon did at Trump's inauguration, seeing how Rogan reacted to that compared to how all his comedy friends reacted, it shows how far gone he is, because most of Rogan's comedian friends seem to think Elon did a Nazi salute, or at least looked just like one. And it sounds like Elon's response to the controversy made them believe that theory even more, because he acted like it was completely ridiculous to think it looked like one. So some of Rogan's comedy friends are like, he's just trying to gaslight us here, this is crazy. And Elon also never even denied doing it. He's just like, again, with the Nazi stuff. But of course, you know who did deny it for him? Joe Rogan. Of course, he'll jump at any opportunity to defend Elon and embarrass himself. And it's funny, he said people only believe it was a Nazi salute because it fits their narrative. But it sounds like most of his friends believe that, and it kind of goes against their narrative. I mean, Shane Gillis, his reaction was like, I know I'm supposed to defend that, but that's a tough one. And it seems like most of Rogan's comedian friends mocked Elon for it, and they thought his response to it was also really bad. So I give him credit here for having their own opinions and not just going along with what they know Rogan would want them to say, because this also just shows how Rogan will shamelessly defend anything Elon does, even if it makes him look completely ridiculous.
But all these people on Twitter are just chiming in saying it's clearly a Nazi salute. He's doing a Nazi salute. Yeah. No.
So dumb. All this gesture means is Heil Hitler. This is all this gesture means.
It's so dumb.
It's not clear.
Yeah, it's crazy. The whole thing's crazy. But that's a sign of the times, and they couldn't help it. They saw a thing, and they're like, this is the thing. We're going to run with it.
But tossing a fucking, yeah, that was crazy, though. That's not that much. That's not
at
an inauguration.
That is a political rally. And then being like, oh my God, enough with the Nazi stuff, dude. It's like, that was wild.
That was a close one.
Fascism is real, folks. Here it is. My heart goes out to you.
My love goes out to you. I'm sorry, I'm autistic. I'm autistic. I didn't know what this is.
My heart goes out to you. It's just weird. It's illogical and weird.
He was throwing his heart to the dude. The justification that fucking people have done. He was fucking dude. You didn't let him finish. He was turning it into a wave. He was throwing his heart to the world.
This thing that is a real problem in today, where people will pretend something is something other than what it is if it suits their narrative.
Right.
And that's what this is.
Yes.
So you got to go, hey. That looks a lot like some Nazi shit. I'm not going to lie. I should probably not do that in the future. Got a little too excited.
Everyone is Hitler attack is so tired.
Yeah, that's No. It's not everyone's Hitler. It's the guy that in front of a crowd goes like that. You have to. You stop gaslighting him. This is what Democrats do. Now you become the Democrats.
And I bet Elon thought all these guys would be defending him because he saved free speech and legalized comedy, so they owe him. You know, like whenever Rogan has him on, he's like, man, where would we be without you? So Elon probably thinks he saved comedy or something. Like, the guy's clearly delusional, and he desperately wants people to think he's funny and cool and edgy. But some of these comedians like Shane Gillis and Tim Dillon just think he's out of his mind and needs intervention or something. Like Tim, he keeps talking about how Elon's ketamine addiction is out of control. And Shane, he heard about Elon's video game lying and was freaked out by it.
I mean, it's like there's living the dream and there's living the meme. And it's pretty much what's happening, you know?
Oh, boy. This is not good. I got to be honest with you. I don't think this is good. But there's got to be a way to present this where he seems less high. I've said that to my friends. Can you just seem less high? I'm not saying don't be high. Just don't like tweak out in front of people. I used to be really fucked up all the time. We need a dad to come, to just go, hey man, here's the reality. You're out of control right now. You're absolutely out of control. And we need that. But this is a dad who himself is a little out of control, I think. I think you come home and you see dad with sunglasses and a chainsaw, and you go, my dad's is going through something. Like, this is like a dad where you would tell your friends before you brought them into your house. My dad's going through something. We don't know what it is, but he's going through something. But we need somebody who's sober.
You know what politically got me fired up? What? What's the video game Elon Musk says he plays? Did you hear he lied about that? What? He's like, he's not even that good at it. He was cheating. He had somebody else playing for him. He's video game lying.
That's
psychotic.
Really weird, yeah.
If that's true, I don't know the story.
Yeah.
If it's true that Elon Musk is video game lying,
video game
that's
lying.
fucking weird.
Okay.
And the funniest thing is Elon bragged about the gaming score he's lying about on Rogan's podcast, and Joe, of course, was all impressed by it. That's how big of a cuck he is. You know, he doesn't care if Elon lies right to his face and makes him look like an idiot. As long as he keeps coming on, he's not going to say anything about it. It's honestly pathetic. Like, Rogan has no spine at this point. And I guarantee a lot of his comedy friends know this and make fun of him for it behind the scenes. Like, how could you not if you're a comedian? I mean, a lot of them make fun of Elon fanboys, and Joe's one of the biggest fanboys. Like Tom Segura just the other day on Two Bears, he had on Kyle Dunnigan, and they're reacting to his Elon impression. And then Tom started talking about how Elon desperately just wants to be liked and wants people to think he's funny and all this stuff. And then they also mentioned how he tweets all day and always responds to haters, like somehow he has the time for that. And then Tom's like, yeah, and it's also crazy to me that he has so many super fans. Like, how are you a massive fan of that?
It's so fascinating that somebody who is, you could argue, is objectively the most successful person on earth.
Yeah.
And you go, I guess they're bored of that? Because now it's just like, I want to be liked. And also be told that I'm funny.
Yeah.
I want to be I don't want to just be like, what I have isn't enough. I want people to tell me I'm a genius, tell me I'm cool.
Yeah.
And know that I'm funny and cool. It's such a...
Really needs has like an 8-year-old sense of humor, which is funny.
Yeah.
Like his cars fart. Like that's what an 8-year-old would do.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah. Yeah. Makes a fart sound. My car's flying around Uranus.
But it is a really interesting personality. Yeah. And I always am fascinated by someone who has time for bullshit, like the pettiness, where you're like, like if you send enough tweets about Jeff Bezos or something, like he's never going to respond to you. Carlos Slim's never going to be like, oh, you're making fun of me. But it gets on Elon's radar where and like he'll strike back at someone. I'm like, how are you not too busy?
Yeah, that's what I don't understand is he tweets so much. If that was my only job was to tweet, I would be exhausted. Yeah. And then he's got 6 more multi-billion-dollar companies. I almost don't believe that.
And the other weird thing is the amount of fanboys. Like, the amount of people who are like, I'm a huge, like their bio line is like, Elon's I'm like, this is who you're a super fan of?
Yeah.
And obviously Tom isn't thinking of Rogan there, but Rogan is one of the biggest Elon fanboys. And I mean, his job at this point is basically to make Elon seem funny and cool. And it's painful to watch. It's so funny. When Joe's on comedians, he'll miss every joke they make, or he doesn't find anything funny. He'll have to do his fake laugh. But then when Elon makes some stupid joke that he's probably already made 1,000 times on Twitter and Joe's probably already heard it, Joe still laughs like crazy, and actually it's the funniest thing he's ever heard.
It's weird. First of all, what is it like to buy a company for $44 billion and then people call you a Nazi on that same thing that you bought?
I did not see it coming. It's classic.
So I blame Joe for Elon believing he's funny. Like, Joe is probably one of the only comedians that believes that, and I don't think it's a coincidence that he's also one of the worst comedians, but unfortunately he's one of the most influential, even though at least he's not influential enough to prevent comedians from roasting Elon. I mean, some might hold back a little bit, but Tim obviously goes pretty hard, and he's been goofing on him for years. And also Shane Gillis, he's been making fun of Elon for a while now too. Like recently somebody put together a compilation of Shane talking about Elon, and I think these clips are from around 2019.
Didn't have him.
You probably
no one probably had him.
Who did have him?
Yo, Elon Musk.
O'Connie's is what I was going to say. But
Elon Musk was in South Africa. Yeah, I was thinking about that today. I'm like, Elon Musk probably had him.
Elon Musk was in South Africa.
Oh, yeah, dude.
Oh, he had him.
He's like a billionaire South African.
Oh, well, that's some blood diamonds down there.
Yeah.
That's why he's working so hard to build robots. He's like, well, we can't have slaves anymore. I better get some fucking robots. Or my family's gonna have to work.
All the AI just shaped like black dudes.
Yeah.
He's like, what? This is the
He's
prototype.
like, I just programmed its voice. I go, yes, a mass. He's like, that's something we're working on. That's how robots talk.
I was
sorry.
I was watching.
He might be retarded. I think he might be tricking everybody and pretending to be an evil genius.
He is, dude. He's a fucking. Just his new idea for. I mean,
it's cool to come up with these ideas. Anybody can say this. Be like, I have a battery that's worth 1,000,000 miles.
Dude, Musk
like,
does.
Let's see, dude.
The Tesla is the best.
I'm from Missouri, dude. You got to show me first.
You're the show me state?
I'm the fucking show me state. Teslas are for douches right now.
It's about to be.
This is all the beta for the Tesla. If you drive a Tesla, you're pretty much corny.
You're paid, dude.
There's a few dogs I know that have Teslas that are
fucking
pretty
sick,
chill,
dude. Dude, Musk is the fucking man. Musk is.
We'll see.
Musk is on my level.
We'll see. We'll see what happens with Musk.
What do you think he's gonna do?
I don't know.
And the fact that he's been getting a lot of negative press.
Something about that
he's a fucking freakish genius, dude. He's been getting a lot of negative
I think
press.
he might head to the Willow world, dude.
So what? Oh, you think he's a fucking?
We'll see, dude. I might roll him up.
You call him Muscapito?
I might roll him up,
dude. You're hating on Musk.
I don't. I don't have any evidence. But I can look one and see one.
So I don't think Shane or Tim Dillon were ever really fans of his. So the best would be if they both went on Joe's podcast and started roasting Elon. I mean, I honestly don't think Joe could handle it. He'd probably have to scrap the podcast. He can't upset his master. But let me know what you guys think, and make sure you check out my Patreon. I recently talked about how Rogan flipped out at his comedy club because he thought a woke journalist infiltrated the green room. It's hilarious. And also last week I talked about a podcast where the host got all offended because their guests kept making fun of him and they had to tell him to stop being too mean. And I also talk a lot about how Rogan sold out and how he might be unknowingly helping Epstein clients whitewash their image with his podcast. So there's a lot to go through, over 120 exclusive videos. Make sure you check it out. They'll be linked in the description.
Let's start with some updates on Somali, because I want to get this up there clear, because I think a lot of people are still not they didn't catch up with the fact that the trial was delayed. So I want to talk about that and also talk about the fact that it may be delayed longer. And I was talking with two people. One of them gave me a single comment on this. The other one gave me some other thoughts. But we have a delay from April 9th to March 16th. So obviously we're in the same courthouse for Somali's trial, which is the Western District Courthouse, from the same courtroom, which is 406, same judge, same prosecutor, which, by the way, the prosecutor in the Western District is not Zhang Aiyang. It is, in fact, a different prosecutor. However, Zhang Aiyang was in the Eastern District. She's the one that brought a lot of these related crimes, the deepfakes, the CSH. And I need to be very careful on what I say with that, because we're so early in the stream. So even talking about that dark subject will get us in trouble with the algorithm. So we'll just say CSH. If you don't know what that stands for, you can look at my other streams and kind of figure that out. And of course, the obstruction of business case, which is coming from Lotte World. So some people have said to me that Ramsey's case, while it's currently delayed to May 16th, could plausibly be bounced once again. And I warned you guys that this process could take a year. It could take 2 years. That is entirely possible depending on how they play it. And also the court, they can slowball this. They can bring in witnesses even just for sentencing. So they can push this thing out very slowly. They have no impetus, no reason to speed this up and get him out of there or get the ruling quick. They can just keep him, and that's totally fine. He's getting his due process. So people have actually been mentioning to me that he may get this may get pushed even further. So we could see this May 16th date even move to June or July or even further. And there's a couple reasons for that. And there's more than this, but these are ones that kind of stand out and I wanted to talk about here today with you guys. The first is that there is additional evidence being submitted on the new charges. I mean, there's additional evidence that we have submitted that the Somali conviction team has has submitted. But, you know, obviously there's plans to submit more evidence regarding the new charges, right? Multi-world, the CSH, you guys know what that means, as well as the deepfakes, right? And there is video literally of Ramsey Khalid Ismail, Johnny Somali, saying he is purely trying to silence the female victim. Of course, the female Korean streamer, they are trying to silence her. And beyond that, the other thing is he positioned himself as her boyfriend. He said, this is my girlfriend. Look, this is my girlfriend. So he didn't just position himself and show a random deepfake. He actually made a false statement. Yeah, this is a person I'm dating. I'm in a romantic or relationship with this woman, and put that out there for the world to see. And like I said, that would be very embarrassing. That would cause people to be embarrassed, ashamed. That would cause a reaction from the audience, which is how that is judged. When you look at the deepfakes, the law turns on people's reaction to it. And the reaction is not good. The reaction of any woman. Once again, this isn't just about Johnny Somali. This is about broader in Korea. There's a big problem with deepfakes being made of people and then people saying, hey, this is my girlfriend, this is my wife, this is my mistress, this is whatever, right? Or look, I'm hooking up with this girl. The danger is if you allow these deepfakes to propagate, people are going to continue to do it. Copycats will happen. And if you don't cut it out at the root, it does propagate. So I think that despite the fact that some people think this is harsh, I think this is absolutely necessary to prevent people from going down this road, because once you start down that deepfake road, it really doesn't stop. And we have cases like the Nth Room, et cetera, where people create further and further stuff that is sexual in nature, that is more adult in nature, even than what Johnny Somali showed, although under Korean law, kissing is a sexual act, right? But that's going to lead to more and more propagation of this if it's not cut out in the bud, if it's not nipped in the bud. And I don't have a problem with that jurisprudence. I don't have a problem with that law. In fact, I'm happy if that deepfake law comes to other jurisdictions. I think that would actually stop that. We're going to have to come up with laws to handle that sort of stuff. And I think harsh laws are merited in these circumstances. Absolutely. Absolutely. So I think with the additional evidence that comes in, they're going to be struggling to, number one, go through that evidence, because the defense attorneys are going to have to go through that evidence. And then the number two is that we're going to have a panic from the defense. That kind of goes into number two here. A panic on the defense.
Check, check. Hey, can you hear me? All right, I'm doing all right. I got through my dental procedure. Wasn't too bad. I was kind of surprised that they didn't use Novocaine. They pried the temporary teeth, or they tried to pry the. I'm getting a little echo. I don't know if you can do anything about that. I'm hearing myself. No, they tried to initially just pry off the temporary teeth, and that wasn't working because the cement was too strong. And then she said something which was a little disturbing. She said, well, it looks like we're going to need to cut it out. And I was like, cut it out without Novocaine? That does not sound good. Ooh. Yeah. But basically, yeah, I know, right? I'm like, what are you talking about, Dr. Mengele? Basically, they, I guess they just cut the temporary tooth. It basically chopped it up into pieces and sucked it out of my mouth. From what I could tell, that was happening. Yeah, it wasn't bad, actually. I was kind of surprised. Initially, I'm like, ah, man, the first second I feel some pain, and I'm going to be like, send in the drugs, man. But yeah, they got it on. It was only about an hour in the chair, all told, and it was all right. It's over with. hopefully. Could have been worse. Yeah. So anyway, I only got about a half hour. I would like to juice. Let's do DMZ just to juice up, because last night was a shit show, and the only way we're gonna get pyro is if we get some good armor, and yeah. All right. Yeah. Okay. All right. Okay. Are you there? All right. Much. Bleak. I'm gonna bring in a couple grand to get us some plates, just so we can survive the outing. All right, so. No. All right. Oops, what am I doing? Oh, yeah, all right. Yeah. Right. That's right. Yeah. Not yet, but yes, later. Yep. Yeah, actually. How are you? Yeah. Oh, okay. I'm pretty happy for. I used to drink this cheap wine, Yellowtail. It's from Australia. I used to drink it like no problem for years, and it was like good, you know, it was super cheap. And then I started branching out and trying different better wines, and then it was like when I went back, it was like, oh no, I can't do it. But recently it was on sale, and it looked like it had won awards and stuff. I think it's just their Cabernet. I usually drink their Merlot, but I tried the Cabernet, and you know what? It wasn't bad. I was like, hey, I can actually $5.99. Hey, it beats $12.99. Especially, well, I don't know. Of course, I don't know what the tariffs are going to do to that any minute. So.
Welcome to Al Mazrah. Explore, secure intel, and loot to gain access to new missions.
I've tried it. It's been a while.
High, so
that's another kind of cheap one. Yeah. You want to hit a shop on the way to the exfil?
Buy station here.
The buy station. Do some looting. Ooh, self-revive right off the bat. Is it a player? Sounds like a player, maybe? No? Oh, okay, bots. Alright, there's one down. Okay. That was me killing a guy. Okay. Oh shit. Where the fuck? Yeah. Uh-oh. Coming. Oh fuck. Uh-oh. So just head down right here. Nice. Oops. Don't blow up our ride. Whoa.
Ultra One, be advised. Threat level is high in this AO. Expect contact. Ultra One,
Yeah,
threat
generally.
moderate near your location.
Yep, yeah, we're following it. Yep. Gonna get us kind of close. Not in the middle of the buildings, but near it. Okay, anywhere here is good. Let's see what's going on. Uh-oh. Fuck. I don't know. I was getting shot at. Oh shit. Oh boy.
Taking effective fire!
Alright, I'm gonna try to... I'll see if I can take these guys down and then I'll get to you, okay? Alright, I'm gonna fucking get over this wall. Shit, I only got one fucking plate. Alright. Oh, you're in here. Okay, good.
Don't
Sweet.
worry, you'll make it.
Uh-oh, I hear somebody. Okay, thank you. Alright. No, I'm good. I just put on my anti-armor.
Ultra One, activity has increased in the... Keep your eyes open.
Loot any... Shit! Fuck. I'm fucking running. Oh my god. Fuck you. Oh. Alright. I'm back to cleaning up here. You guys are fucking irritating. Alright, cool. Alright, let me, no, it's okay. Alright, got plates. Good. Alright, now, you want to see if there's a mission or contract, I should say?
Elimination contract here.
Oh, yeah. I'd do the HVT, that'd be alright. Oh, guys right here, a whole bunch of guys.
Fire.
Please don't drop any keys.
1, you've got hostile reinforcements incoming.
Ammo here.
Sure looks that way. Oh, fuck. Okay. Alright.
I'm taking fire.
What? That guy didn't go down. I had anti-armor runs. Or maybe they were out. I don't know. Anyway. Alright, going to...
Moving. Enemy infantry here.
Ultra One, we're seeing increased activity in the area. Stay sharp.
I just did.
Ultra One, we have PID on the wanted Los Alamos enforcer Montoya. His location is marked on your TAC maps. You have execute authority.
Take TAC me.
What's going on down there?
Marking enemy.
He's down. I got him. Uh-oh.
I need mid-caliber rounds. Moving here.
Going the wrong way.
Ultra One, be advised you're approaching the target's location now.
I'm taking fire.
Can you get over here? Can you get over here?
I've got you, mate.
Ultra One, actual. Target disengaged by an enemy team. Positive ID on the body to confirm the kill.
I got 9. I'm alright.
I need mid-caliber rounds.
PID confirmed on Montoya. Name and assault arrest.
I guess so.
Taking fire! I need mid-caliber rounds.
Where the fuck are these guys?
I need mid-caliber rounds.
They're up on me. Fuck. Fuck. Alright, I'm gonna try. Sneak up behind him. Shit, I gotta play it up. Come on. Oh, here they come.
Car marked. Got movement. I'm marking enemy special forces. Fire over here. Lights are going down. You're a hard bastard. You'll make it.
Okay. I only got one. Thank you. All right, we're just looting and killing, continuing to loot and kill. 11 minutes. Maybe we should probably go, huh? Yeah.
Ultra One, you've got hostile reinforcements incoming.
Cargo helo inbound.
Alright. Good. Here. We're gonna head towards,
Ultra One, enemy threat is moderate in the AO.
Extract point marked.
Alright. Alright.
Ultra One, be advised, enemy threat is high in the AO.
Alright. Alright. Tunnel to the right, nobody in there.
Ultra One, extraction is inbound at this time.
All Ultra, Dino 4's inbound for extraction. Be with you soon.
Yeah, this is pretty nice. Nice. Yeah, and if you had to, you could just parachute away. Yeah, nice. It's pretty cool.
Ultra One, we have visual on the LZ. Keep it clear.
Cargo helo inbound.
Beautiful.
Exfil bird marked.
Plane and a helicopter.
Hey, pick up the fire. I just need a second.
taking effective fire.
Lights are going down.
Ah, shit, man. Oh, my God. Wow. We were just sitting there bragging about how...
Ultra One, copy that. Requesting medical for you now.
Oh, boy. They came out of nowhere.
Inbound to give medical aid.
Like... I even got him with the thermite right in the windshield, and it didn't stop him. There. Oh. Shit. Wow. Yeah. You never know. Wow. Yeah. Oh. Yeah. Well, at least we didn't have like a key or something really, you know. We did. I don't feel like. Yeah. 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 All right. I will. All right. Cool. All right. I will see you tomorrow. All right. Good night.
Defense and representation issues. So here's what's happening is they're having to decide, how are we gonna defend against this? What's our story? What's our angle, right? And also here's the very complicated thing. This public defender is totally blindsided. The Western District public defender is blindsided by this because he had no idea. He wasn't covering this. He wasn't in the Eastern District. This was supposed to have been nipped in the bud and stopped before indictment by the Eastern District, quote unquote, paid lawyer, but that lawyer failed. That lawyer failed to stop that indictment from going through. And as I've said, once something is officially indicted, once it's on the court record, it's really not coming off. We don't have much history talking to people or experience with a indictment coming off and being removed or dropped. Now, a prosecutor can choose to recommend a lighter sentence, even if there was a lot of cooperation, if the person was friendly, if they were apologetic. But this is not that scenario. This is Johnny Somali. He has been unapologetic. He has been unashamed. He says, I don't care. And he says, I'm going to bring this B word down. That's what he said about the female victim. And that is absolutely an aggravating factor under Korean law. And I think they're going to have to consider that. And the public defender has no idea on the strategy on how to do this. They haven't had that little romantic defense meeting that they had with the paid lawyer. In fact, I'm not even sure the public defender is going to give them the time of day. Because remember, there's a difference between a paid lawyer and a public defender. A public defender does not have to give you unlimited time. A public defender does not have to review your stuff all day. They have to give you a certain amount of consideration, and that's it. They don't have to sit with you for hours and hours. They don't have to pour over this in an unlimited fashion. They have multiple clients they have to handle, and you're just one of them. And one of the issues is I don't think Johnny has enough money to pay this attorney from the Eastern District to represent him in the West and spend all that time in court and all that time catching up. I think there's monetary issues, and that's going to become a huge mess. So I can see them saying, hey, look, we're going to have to sort this out, and that's going to take more than a month to sort out that issue. And I think the lawyers themselves may recommend to delay it yet again. So we're going to see as we get closer to May. I expect a couple days before we might even get a delay again. But once again, I'm telling you what's on the court records as of tonight. It is May 16th. That's the next day. Once again, I know a lot of people were asking, well, what about April 9th? No, that was completely moved. That date was completely moved. And then last, this is the most interesting one to me. I think one of the other things is decision to challenge. And I can see a realistic scenario where Johnny Somali pleads guilty to everything but the deepfakes and possibly the CSH charge. Obviously, he's going to want to try to fight that if it comes down. I think that's pretty reasonable. So if the CSH comes in as a separate charge, not included as part of obstruction, but a separate actual charge, I think that is something he may try to plead not guilty to. And the deepfakes, I think in a very reasonable scenario, he may try to fight that. He did say he was going to fight that. Now, I don't believe much that comes out of Ramsey Khalid Ismail's mouth, but if he decides to plead not guilty, we're in for a longer trial. So if he wants to try to fight that specific charge and just go for the obstruction, we can do that. Then we're talking about another year.
Did you miss the Trump trade? The insider group chat we were all invited to. Guys, I don't know if you saw this. There was a huge opportunity to make.
This is Representative Stephen Horsford. I don't know where he comes from. He is in the, right now, in the Ways and Means Committee hearing, U.S. Trade Representative Greer, right? And he is testifying about the tariffs. Why Trump has imposed on the entire world these exorbitant tariffs. And while he's testifying to that effect, Trump tweets out that actually we're putting in a moratorium on all the tariffs that are not against China. We're taking China's to 125. We're going to just do 10% for everybody for the next 90 days and then maybe go back. Like, there's such an intense lack of planning associated with this, aside from, of course, there's also an intense lack of agenda. But here is Horsford to Greer.
Mr. Trade Representative, are you aware that the tariffs have been paused?
I am, yes.
When were you made aware of that?
Well, I understood the decision was made a few minutes ago.
Sitting here
under discussion.
Sitting here under discussion. So did you know that this was under discussion, and why did you not include that as part of your opening remarks?
So typically, what I don't do is divulge the contents of my discussions.
What are the details of the pause?
Well, my understanding is that because so many countries have decided not to retaliate, we're going to have about 90 days.
No, excuse me? China increased their tariffs on the United States. Trump blinked.
What's the blink, sir?
What do you know about this pause? What are the details of it?
No, pause it for a second. Listen. The reason why we're not doing tariffs is because they didn't respond to the tariffs. So the reason why I'm not going to sanction you is because you didn't sanction us back. And so everything we just did was just to see. It was a test. It was a test. It was a test. It's like a test. Like when you're dating somebody. Do you want to see if this person really cares about you or not? So you pretend like it's your birthday and see if they bring you a present. And if they bring you a present, then you say, yes, good job, but it's not my birthday, so you don't have to give me that present. Go ahead.
China increased their tariffs on the United States. Trump blinked.
What's the blink, sir?
What do you know about this pause? What are the details of it?
Well, the details, as I understand it, is that China continues to retaliate. Other countries didn't retaliate. The president 2 or 3 days ago said we wanted to negotiate with those countries that asked for meetings. That's what we're doing.
What are the details? How long is the pause? How many days? How many weeks?
I understand it's 90 days. I haven't spoken to the president since I've been.
So the trade representative hasn't spoken to the president of the United States about a global reordering of trade
Yes, I have. I've just been in the hearing with you, sir.
But yet he announced it on a tweet. WTF? Who's in charge?
The President of the United States is in charge.
And what do you know about those details?
Well, as I mentioned...
it looks like your boss just pulled the rug out from under you and paused the tariffs, the taxes on the American people. There's no strategy. You just found out 3 seconds ago, sitting here, we saw you.
We've been discussing a variety of...
If you came here knowing that you were going to be turned off, that these tariffs were going to be turned off, why didn't you include that in your opening statement? Why didn't you reference that as part of your testimony?
Well, I don't disclose my conversations with the President.
These were specific questions we asked you all along. What's the strategy? These are real consequences for the American people and small businesses. I had a group of small businesses in my office.
Just make a quick point. Like, if he can't divulge what he's talking about with the president vis-a-vis trade, why is he there?
Also, of course he can. Of course he can. Like, the fact... I mean, it's almost as if Trump wanted to humiliate him. The fact that he announced it on Twitter, like without telling him that he was going to announce it. Like the guy could have said, there's going to be an announcement in half an hour, so everybody hold your horses. Wait, who's Greer? Greer? You know, his voice sounds a little mousy. The president is in charge. He sounds a little mousy, doesn't he? We need somebody bigger, somebody tougher, like a coal miner. But unfortunately, they don't want to have a better job. They don't want to work in an office. It's too bad, because a lot of those coal miners look like big, strong guys who could be a trade representative. But they love sucking in the coal, as they call it. That's what I call it, sucking in the coal. Happy birthday. Here's your mesothelioma. Go ahead.
Office earlier today talking about the impacts of these tariffs on aluminum and steel. This is amateur hour, and it needs to stop. What does this even mean for your negotiating strategy? How are you in charge of negotiation if the president is tweeting about this from wherever the hell he is?
The president was elected, and he runs the trade policy, and I advise him and execute his
Who executes the trade policy?
I execute the trade policy.
Did you know that this was happening?
We have been discussing all kinds
and there's another member of the cabinet, Bessent, who just canceled coming to the Hill to avoid talking about the market because it's in turmoil. This in just days because there was no strategy.
You know, strategy, smermashadity. You gotta be nimble. You gotta be quick on your feet.
Strategy's right in my brain, okay?
Did I tell you that my uncle went to MIT? This is, here is, look, obviously some low-level guy like the head of trade in the country. You can't expect him to know that this universal, massive, remember, they were bragging that we got phone calls from 50 countries. They imposed trade tariffs on, what was it, like 100 and some odd countries? You cannot expect this guy to know that they completely reversed on all of these except for China, because he's low level. He's just the guy in charge of trade. What we need to do is hear from the Secretary of Treasury so that we can get the story straight, because he's the one who knows what's going on. Let's hear from Scott Bessent.
Secretary Bessent, can you explain what the decision making on what feels like a reversal here? I mean, these went into effect less than 15 hours ago, these tariffs. Why pause now? What led to that?
No. Again, President Trump created maximum negotiating leverage for himself, and which tariffs went into effect 15 hours ago? The ones that we have lowered went into effect a week ago, or they were announced a week ago, and we've just been overwhelmed by the response from mostly our allies who want to come and negotiate in good faith. So.
So, in other words, we weren't prepared for anybody to come back and negotiate. There's just no way in which this looks good. And again, we still don't understand. Like, the 10% tariffs, I guess they're now 10% tariffs, are just going to be inflationary. They're not going to spur any U.S. manufacturing. Like, what is the goal of this? We don't know. We don't have any clue. It's completely nuts. Hey, folks, don't forget to hit the subscribe button and check out our daily show. We do it every day at 12 p.m. Eastern for about 2.5 hours. We even take phone calls. You should check that out.
I think the globe kind of just understands that Donald Trump doesn't know what he's doing. He's repeatedly confused the trade deficit and the budget deficit, or at least conflated it for lying ends. He doesn't seem to understand who will pay the tariffs, right? He keeps saying that it's going to be these foreign governments. No, the businesses will pay the tariffs, and then they offset it on the American consumer. And that goofy formula that Peter Navarro came up with has been mocked endlessly, as it should be. But even with this reversal of the most insane tariffs, like, we are kind of screwed regardless because of the level of uncertainty that this created in the market. U.S. Treasury bonds, this is the best of my ability to explain this, so bear with me and feel free to IM if I get some stuff wrong. But to the best of my understanding, they're supposed to be some of the safest investments available because they are backed by the United States government. If there's a lot of demand for U.S. Treasury bonds, it means that global confidence in the American economy is very high, right?
For instance, the great financial crisis, when the stock market was tanking and nobody wanted to invest in companies, people were investing in, ironically, America was benefiting because our Treasury bonds were the safe place for all that money to go, the extra money.
Because also the yield is high if the Treasury bonds are healthy, the longer they are, meaning you're betting on it's more stable if the people that are betting on this think that you're going to get more of a return if you invest in the U.S. economy long term, right? And when the United States borrows money from other countries, it does so by selling Treasury bonds. So the stability of these Treasury bonds is essential really to everything, right? Like, it's the foundation of everything in our economy. Our government debt is issued as bonds to the public. And so with these bonds, it's a little bit misleading to people when they see the prices going up, because it makes it more likely, or when you see the graph going up. Here, I'll abandon that for just a second. Let's play this clip and we'll get back to this, the bond story from Fox News. This is Fox Business's Charlie Gasparino, and he's trying to basically throw cold water on the idea that because the market somewhat rebounded, that Trump has outsmarted the world.
From Fox Business Network now. Whew, this is quite the moment. As you can imagine, the art of the deals all over the Twitter sphere right now, as people say, I mean, maybe this is the way he planned it. To John's point, Charlie, about the Treasury Secretary saying maybe you could say that he goaded China into a bad position for themselves. Well, don't retaliate, things will work out well, he said.
I mean, I want to tell you right now that Donald Trump outsmarted the world. Trust me, I'm an American, I support my president, but that's not really what happened here from what I understand. And I know I'll get pushed back, but here's what it is. First off, we should point out that one of the good things about this is that Scott Bessent is finally in the White House. He's finally leading this. I mean, up until a couple days ago, it was Lutnick, it was Peter Navarro, the Commerce Secretary, the trade advisor, very much hawks. Now it's Scott Bessent, who believes in cutting deals as opposed to, just let's not just putting these tariffs out there and let's be a mercantilistic economy. That's number one. But number two, let's recall what happened overnight. And from what I understand, and I'm getting this from people that are talking to the White House, what happened in the bond market overnight, the spike in yields on the 30-year and the 10-year bond, which showed that people were dumping our bonds. And who were those people dumping our bonds? Japan, the biggest holder.